Airline chaos will continue for weeks after thousands are stranded by the worst day of disruption in 10 years.
Good morning. It's 6 o'clock on Tuesday, the 29th of August. This is Breakfast on GBNews with Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel Webster.
We particularly think of you if you are watching or listening at some airport, domestic or international, and are there stranded, because that is what leads our news this morning.
Yes, travellers are facing a week of serious disruption following a network-wide failure of the UK's air traffic control system. The meltdown saw thousands hit with cancellations and severe delays.
We've got the Transport Minister in about 45 minutes' time. A controversial expansion of London's ultra-low emission zone comes into force today, affecting most roads within the M25. The bid by Mayor Sadiq Khan to improve the city's environment has been met with challenges from some motorists concerned about the extra charges.
It comes as a Labour frontbencher hits out at the Mayor over the scheme, calling on him to delay its introduction.
And regional leaders of the Spanish Football Federation have called for the immediate resignation of their president, Luis Rubiales, after he kissed player Jenny Hermoso on the lips. Paul Coit will be here with all the sport.
Yeah, morning. Everybody wants him gone. FIFA have banned him. Everybody wants him out. Players won't play for him. But his mum still supports him and has gone on hunger strike in support.
Well, that's what you'd want your mum to do.
It is what
She's locked herself up in a church in a confession box.
But you could argue that's where he got his flair for the theatrics from, arguably. She's, really got herself in a position she's not moving from it, which perhaps they should.
Indeed. OK, thank you, Paul. And Craig Snell will have your latest weather forecast.
Good morning. It's the final week of August. Will we see any dry and fine weather before we move into autumn? Find out in a little bit.
OK, so let's get going. Our top story: air travellers are facing days of disruption after a major systems failure in Britain's air traffic control system left tens of thousands of passengers stranded on one of the busiest travel days of the year.
Well, the technical fault caused 80% of flights to be delayed and an estimated 1,200 cancelled in the single worst day of air traffic disruption since the Iceland volcano eruption. Do you remember that, in 2010?
Well, our man on the ground, GBNews East Midlands reporter Will Hollis is there at the airport in East Midlands for us this morning. Will, what are the after effects today? What happened yesterday?
Good morning. Well, I suppose the good news, if there can be good news dragged out of this story, is that the NATS, the Air Traffic Service, said yesterday afternoon that they had identified and remedied the problem. The problem was with their systems being unable to automatically process flight plans. So they say that they were having to do everything manually. The bad news, of course, particularly for people that are stuck at the other end in European destinations where airports have, of course, been affected as well, is that their holiday return is pretty much in ruins, and it could go on for quite some time. Just to bring back to exactly what happened yesterday, the Air Traffic Service, which is the biggest here in the UK, manages the airspace, so flights that are coming in and out of the UK as well as simply over our airspace. They said at about midday that they had discovered a technical issue and that it had applied traffic flow restrictions to maintain safety. It's also announced that although UK airspace was not closed as such, that it was heavily restricted. It continued to say that our priority is ensuring every flight in the UK remains safe, and doing so we can minimise the impact. Of course, the impact particularly is for those passengers, some at airports like this one here in the East Midlands Airport, but particularly at those big airports like Heathrow. Now, the advice to passengers, as it has been since yesterday, it is the same this morning, is particularly to get in touch with your airline to find out what's going on. There is also advice around the kind of support that you can get. particularly if you're having to stay somewhere overnight. If your problems go on for longer than 24 hours, you should be owed some sort of food and drink as well as somewhere to stay. And if your flight is completely cancelled, then you can of course be in line for some sort of remedy or compensation. But the big news today is that this is going to go on for quite some time. Even if that problem has been identified and remedied, the fallout can last days, if not until the end of the week.
I mean, this is a catastrophic failure. Let's not underestimate just how bad this is. Not only affecting you if you're on holiday, but people commuting within the UK as well. Glasgow to London, Belfast to London, London to Leeds. Goodness knows what it involves. All the major airlines affected by this. Statements from BA, Ryanair, TUI, EasyJet and Jet2, all basically saying, not our fault.
Yeah, and the timing could not have been worse because, of course, Bank Holiday Monday, lots of people were coming back from weekends away, trying to be ready for work today. Other people coming back from holidays. And questions now about whether they'll be back in time for the start of term. Some schools going back at the end of the week, many beginning next week. Tweets here, literally stranded in Fuerteventura due to our flight being cancelled. 0 EasyJet staff in sight. Frazzled airport employees saying the next flight out is on September the 4th.
What, a week away?
But apparently EasyJet will only cover one night in a hotel. Who's running this? And I can't read the next little bit. You get the idea. This one currently
but the
stranded
thing is, in fairness to EasyJet, it's not their fault, right? This is the air traffic control problem, but it's how they deal with it.
Yeah,
And
we'll get some advice on what your rights are if you are stranded this morning. Currently stranded in Gran Canaria Airport with absolutely no communication this time, also criticising EasyJet. Flight cancelled, people being told the next available flight's the 7th of September. Not acceptable. Lily Smith stranded in Geneva for 24 hours, maybe more. No hotel voucher. Beers cost £9 at the airport. Packaged sandwiches are £16. Lots of criticism of how this makes Britain look. Let's speak to Simon Calder and get his take on what people can do in these situations.
Simon, it's a heck of a coincidence. The busiest day for air traffic in the year, and the system goes down. Is there any talk that there was a hack involved in this?
Oh, there's lots of talk about that, Eamonn, and good morning to you both. But from what I've seen over the years, when you get issues like this, they inevitably turn out to be foul-ups rather than effectively being hacked, and something went very, very badly wrong with the extraordinarily complex system that is being used by NATS, the National Air Traffic Service, and with everything working at full stretch because it is such a busy time for airline passengers. Well, the cancellations just multiplied. By midnight last night, I had counted over 1,200 flights cancelled, and that is 200,000 people waking up this morning where they didn't want to be. And I dare say a few places of work will be looking a bit empty today as people can't get home. And I'm afraid things are getting worse before they get better. British Airways and EasyJet have got around 60 cancellations each today. That represents another 20,000 or so travellers. Ryanair has cancelled 20 flights. So it's going to be very messy. And, well, the messages you heard from your viewers, stuck here till the 7th of September, that won't happen. The airline absolutely has to get you back as soon as possible, even if it has to buy a ticket on another airline. And there is no truth in any rumour that the airline only has to pay for one night's accommodation. They have to pay for your hotel if you're lucky enough to get a room. And I've just heard that Gatwick, pretty much every chair, every bit of floor has got somebody sleeping on it because people couldn't get hotel rooms. And they, of course, have to pay for meals as well, but not those £9 beers.
Gosh, yeah. And listen, we'll talk about this knock-on lasting days, possibly to the end of the week. And the timing of this, terrible with the bank holiday and the school holidays coming to an end. I mean, talk of significant disruption. That's going to be costly, isn't it, to the airlines, to the airport, to passengers?
Yeah, I mean, of course, the main impact emotionally is on all the passengers who are suffering increasing distress about being stuck. I mean, it's all very well being in Fuerteventura unless you're expected back at the office. or indeed you're sleeping at the airport. The airlines are going to be tens of millions of pounds down for this. Nobody is going to get cash compensation because it's plainly not the airline's fault, but they do have to pay for all those hotel rooms, buying seats on other flights, and indeed losing the revenue that they would normally be earning from some extremely expensive airfares. So they are furious about this, and they want, like everybody who's stranded, they want to know exactly what it was that went wrong and
Simon,
what they're going to do to make sure it happen again.
So we've got passengers who want to sue the airlines. Who does the airlines sue? Do they sue the National Air Traffic Services? Are they entitled to any compensation?
Well, there will be, I think, some fairly robust discussions going on. Passengers, all they can do is claim recompense for the extra costs that they incurred, and the airlines are supposed to actually provide those hotel rooms for the passengers. In practice, if you've got disruption on this scale, that is simply never going to happen. They do have to repay that money, and so they will. Apart from anything else, of course, it completely destabilizes confidence. It was going to be a tough old bank holiday Monday anyway, and to have the entire system that looks after the UK airspace go down in the middle of the day for 4 hours is pretty unthinkable, which is why this is the worst single day's disruption we have seen since those bleak old days in 2010 when the Icelandic volcano was doing its worst.
Simon, do you happen to know what time the system went down at? What time during the day? Just interested because we've got the Transport Minister on at 10 to 7 this morning. It took them a long time to reply or to come out with any sort of initiative on this.
Yeah, I mean, I started getting messages from airline people at around 11:15, and I believe that Nat's got the problem fixed by 3:15. Yes, of course, the main thing is everybody was safe. There was never any risk to passengers. But to have a contingency plan, which is basically people writing things down on pieces of paper, doesn't sound very 21st century. And I would be inviting the Transport Minister to talk about what the government plans to do to ensure that national infrastructure like this is not susceptible to some kind of systems failure at exactly the least convenient time.
OK, thanks very much indeed, Simon. And speaking to us from a very smart-looking airport lounge there in Sweden. But we understand lots of our viewers and listeners this morning joining us from airport lounges. And if you are affected by this, we very much want to...
So are you stranded, Simon? He's dropped off already. Right. No, just interested. Didn't know he
probably will be struggling to get home if he was trying to, which fits very nicely with the story. But listen, we do want to hear from real people, real GB News viewers. So do get in touch. GBViews at GBViews at gbnews.com with your stories, and we'll try and get some of those on air during the programme.
OK. Sadiq Khan's controversial ULEZ expansion comes into force today after months of legal battles and backlash from motorists affected.
Well, the scheme will mean owners of older and more polluting vehicles who live and work inside London's M25 will have to pay a daily charge of £12.50. It's around 1 in 10 people affected.
Quentin Wilson, motoring journalist and transport campaigner, with his views now on this. Quentin, good morning to you.
Morning.
What's your view on ULEZ?
Well, I think, over the years, Eamonn, you have interviewed me many times on electric cars, and I support them, and I support urban air quality. But this is the wrong time. Its delivery is so clumsy and clunky. And we've got to take consumers with us on this journey. And it's become such a controversial issue. You've got 6 of the 7 counties outside London saying they won't put their signs up. You've got the leader of both political parties. We think we should pause and reflect. So listen to the mood music, because this is the wrong time and it's been so poorly delivered. If you look at Cambridge, who proposed a congestion charge scheme a while back, they got a lot of backlash from residents and outsiders, and they've modified it and they've made it, 50 free days and only at peak times. So this could have been phased in much, much better, but it's the clunky, cack-handed delivery of it, which is so difficult. And the biggest tragedy, Eamonn, is that the cause of air quality, which is really, really important, and we should all be thinking about making the air in our cities better. This has been widely discredited and it's been politicised, and that's such a tragedy.
It's interesting, talking about listening to the mood music and responding to people's, outrage or upset about it. The Mayor of London would say, listen, we've upped our scrappage scheme. The biggest scrappage scheme in British history has been launched to try and help people who are affected, the poorest people. But actually, absolutely every Londoner is entitled to a certain proportion of cash. 2k for a car, I think it is, 7k for a van, £9,000 to convert a minibus into a ULEZ compliant vehicle. So do you think that they've tried, in fairness, they've upped the amount of funding that there is available for Londoners?
But with respect, £2,000 doesn't buy you much. And I mean, the cars they're scrapping are sometimes making sort of £4,000 or £5,000. So that, idea of this grand, eloquent gesture of £2,000 per car, it's very small when you look at what you've got to pay for a compliant car. And the website, I find, is really, really difficult and clunky. And your viewers might like to know that there's another website, ulez.co.uk, which is much simpler, much easier, and tells you how to navigate around it. But the fact that you've got these councils now saying that we won't put up the signs, and then there's been a legal challenge to the signs saying that they're not legal because they don't tell the charging information. This is all going to go really, really badly, and we're going to have ULEZ martyrs who get fined and then refuse to pay and have to go to prison or bailiffs or whatever. So it's going to be a real mess.
So, Quentin, you've outlined very well, very graphically, the problems there. What would you see as the solutions?
Well, I would have phased this in much, much more gently. I would have been far less, implacable. I mean, TfL just are completely implacable. They don't take any discussion on this. The mayor needed to sort of engage more with people and done this over a period of a couple of years and put free charging days and do it at peak times as Cambridge has done and made it much more accessible, much more user-friendly, because this is a day, Eamonn, we should be celebrating. We should be saying this is a great thing for London. The inner London ULEZ has cleaned the air significantly, but instead it's now been turned into this really toxic, that's the right word, toxic discussion on whether this works, and the science has been called into question. So I think TfL have completely lost control of this, and that's the greatest mistake. They shouldn't have done that. They should have taken consumers with them.
Yeah, but just to clarify, because in the same sentence you're saying the air's been cleaned up in inner London, and then you're saying the science has been discredited. I mean, we need to be clear, don't we? I mean, TfL would argue, and these are their own stats, they'll say that nitrogen dioxide concentrations are down 46% in central London and 21% in inner London.
That's inner London, but you look at the outskirts where TfL say that only 1 in 10 cars are going to be non-compliant, then you say, OK, why do we need this there at all? And why do we need it so quickly? The inner London stats, I think, are good, and 46% in nitrogen dioxide is a massive, massive reduction, but that won't apply in the outer suburbs where you don't get that real close density of traffic.
OK. Good point.
Quentin, thank you very much indeed. It is a conundrum. It comes into force today. We'll say goodbye to you, my friend. And the ULEZ will give us your views on this. Let us know the expansion today in London. Oh, is Quentin still there? Is Quentin... Is he there? Yes or no? Yes, Quentin, sorry, just one other question. The main concern is we see this in London today. Are we going to see it elsewhere tomorrow? People might say, well, this is a London issue. It doesn't affect me because I live in Leeds or I live in Belfast or wherever. What's your view on that?
There are numerous councils who are going to, and who have already put in clean air zones, but others will be looking at it. And this is a kind of European issue too. But they will be looking at this and saying, OK, this has been quite controversial, quite difficult. So hopefully they will look at this and say, we need to be different. We need to do this in a much more measured, user-friendly way and understand that the motorists, which is cast as a kind of, privileged lobby group, these are everyday people who need cars to go to work. So they need to do that with their acquiescence, with their support, and bring them on this journey. So they'll look at this hopefully and say, we would do this differently. We wouldn't take a lump hammer to this as TfL has.
OK, thank you. Thank you. That's definitely the last question. Thank you very much indeed. Quentin Wilson there.
Right, time is 6:20. Let's bring you up to date with the rest of today's top stories. And the NHS is expanding blood pressure checks available locally as part of a major drive to prevent strokes and heart attacks. New funding will see 2.5 million more checks in community pharmacies, which could prevent over 1,000 cardiovascular events each year.
2 men are in hospital following a spate of stabbing incidents at the Notting Hill Carnival yesterday. According to the police, a 29-year-old man is in a critical condition and a 19-year-old man is serious but stable, with 6 other men having sustained injuries.
Trust in supermarkets has plummeted to its lowest point in more than a decade as the majority of households grapple with rising prices, according to the consumer rights group Which. The survey found that trust in the sector dropped to the lowest it's been since the 2013 horse meat scandal. Just had an interesting email in from Australia. Tim says, "Hi, Eamonn and Isabel. I'm listening to your show whilst driving the 500 kilometres in Australia from Sunraysia to Melbourne. Your show helps make the longest drive pass quickly. Let's have another good day." Tim, that's so interesting.
Just be careful it doesn't make you go to sleep, Tim. That's the
we'll
main
do our
danger.
best to keep you awake.
That's the main danger with that.
But I chose that email to read out because I wanted to talk a little bit about Australia. A British woman has become the first in the world to have had a live parasitic worm alive in her front right cortex of her brain. She was admitted to hospital a couple of years ago with stomach pain and diarrhoea, and they believe that the worm made its way from her intestine, which she ingested probably from eggs or something contaminated on a knife and fork, something like that, from her intestine up into her brain because she was on immunosuppressants. So the worm obviously wasn't getting what it wanted from the intestine, and went up into the brain, and she started to get memory loss and depression. The doctors thought, well, we'll do a scan of your brain, and there they saw that wiggly worm.
That's amazing that technology was able to find that. I mean, the worm could have been an egg for a long while and then hatched, but absolutely scary or could have gone up her nose.
Oh, so grim. I had a dog hook worm on my hand after I went on a trip to Thailand in my gap year. And I went to the GP. My mum picked me up from the airport and took me straight to the doctors. And the GP went away and called all of his friends in, about 12
to
doctors.
Have a look at it, photograph it.
And they said, what we can do is you can either cut the skin and pull it out, wind it round a pencil, at which point I started to think I was going to faint. And they said, we can get you an unlicensed drug from France, which means it'll dissolve and be reabsorbed into your bloodstream. And I thought, yeah, I'll have that one. And I went clubbing that night with my friends and I was just splashing the worm everywhere.
Oh, dear.
Anyway, it went after about 3 days. But it grew 1 centimetre a day. And it was
I'd have them cut the skin and whip it out. So
I wanted the drugs.
But it would have died anyway. It would have tasted your blood.
Straight away, but
it would have been...
So the dangers of lying on a beach, it's just lying on a beach in Thailand and I picked up a
Talking about that, lying on a beach, do you do it au naturel? Do you do it covered in a swimming costume or whatever? We're going to be talking about that later in the programme today.
Sunbathing specifically.
Is that what it is specifically?
Yeah, the Spanish have
I personally don't go topless.
No?
I think it's shocking.
Wear a bikini.
My breasts would be...
Or it's an all-in-one swimming costume for you.
Would be too much for too many people, so it would be. I wear a T-shirt. So what time are we doing that? 8:20. 8:20 this morning. Are you a nudie? Are you topless? Or are you more conservative? And then the whole thing about it is, let us know. I mean, you could say, yeah, I'm in favour of this, but then just say it's your next door neighbour you bump into or your work colleague or whatever. Does it then become more embarrassing?
100%, yeah.
Yeah. So what's your view on it? Let us know.
And that will keep you amused on your long drive in Australia, Tim, I'm sure. Look, lots more coming your way, including the forecast. Here's Craig Snell.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. I'm Craig Snell. Well, looking ahead to today, it's a mixture of sunshine and scattered showers for most of us, but it'll be pretty breezy up across the north. So we start the day with this band of showery rain across northern England, parts of Wales. That will sink its way southeastwards as the day goes on. Behind it for Scotland and Northern Ireland, really some blustery showers from the word go. The heaviest of these showers probably up across northern Scotland. I think come the afternoon, best of any drier and brighter weather will be across northern England. And in any sunshine, not feeling too bad for the time of year. In the south, we could see highs reaching around 21 or 22 degrees. Into the evening, this band of rain across the Midlands will sink its way southeastwards, clearing the southeast as we go through the course of the night. That will leave a lot of southern parts of the UK dry and clear, where further north, continuation of some showers. And again, some of these could be potentially heavy up across the far north of Scotland. Under the clear skies, turning a little bit cool for the time of year, could see lows falling down to about 5 to 6 degrees in some prone spots. But that will set us up for a fairly bright start across many parts of the country, and I'm hopeful a little bit more in the way of sunshine around compared to today. But still the risk of some showers. Some of these showers could be quite heavy. Initially across northern England, they may well sink their way into parts of the Midlands and East Anglia as the day goes on, with perhaps the driest and brightest conditions tomorrow down towards the southwest. Highs very similar to what we'll be seeing today.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
OK, kissing on the lips from a stranger. We have the latest on the calls for the head of the Spanish FA to resign
after kissing a female player on the mouth. It wasn't consensual. Discussing that next.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m. Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Look, really understand your frustration stranded at airports, and just when you swear we can't read them out really, and everybody is swearing. You're very, very annoyed about all this. So we'll try and find out if it's the airline to blame, air traffic control to blame. But basically you're all saying the airport has no representation, no contact with the airlines have no contact with us, we're left stranded, no support at all. But this is it. When is everybody going to get it through your head that you have a price to pay, I suppose, for a 35 quid air ticket if you get that? These airlines, they don't care. They treat you like cattle. Get them on, get them off, no messing around, no wasted time, turn the plane around as quick as you can, and that is the price we're paying for that.
On that, can I just say, the airlines might treat you like cattle, but it's not the fault of the air stewards and stewardesses and the people who are trying to deal with all of this today. And there is so much anger and frustration. I'm just saying, in all your anger and frustration, don't take it out on them, because, of course, this is a nightmare for them. Also, in many cases, stuck away from home as well.
Yeah, but the system is wrong. The idea of saying, you know, letting you know you have no one to speak to. Forget it, you've no one to speak to. Go on your phone, send an email that no one will answer, phone a line that no one will answer as well. These airlines, they are shoddy. Are there any really good quality airlines left? Are there, that actually provide a service?
It's not like it used to be.
Certainly not like it used to be. Certainly not. Right, more on that as the programme progresses, and still to come in 15 minutes' time.
Yes, we'll be speaking to the Transport Secretary, Mark Harper. Tens of thousands, as we've been discussing, airline passengers have been disrupted. We'll be talking to him about what the government is trying to do about it.
OK, 7:20. As a group of teenage girls write to the PM urging him to keep single-sex toilets in schools, we will debate if it's time to put an end to the trend of gender-neutral bathrooms. Right, so here's my point. Why do we need, what are they called?
Gender neutral?
Gender neutral toilets.
Well, cost saving.
That's what I think. I think it's a purely cost saving issue.
But it's not a cost saving issue in schools, because traditionally they've always been catered for separately. So they're actually changing existing infrastructure, if you want to call it that, to make them gender neutral. So in schools it seems silly. If you're building somewhere new, it's cheaper just to shove one bunch of toilets in together. I understand that, and as long as the doors are top to bottom. But schools are sacrosanct, and as my producer Charlie said this morning, teenage boys are a specifically grubby bunch, aren't they? So if you've got a girl, you don't want the boys anywhere near them in the toilets.
Well, I can't speak for women, but men are filthy creatures. Men are filthy creatures.
Teenage boys in particular.
Men, full stop.
I can't disagree, although
dribbles. Do you suffer from dribbles in your house?
No.
You're fibbing. You've got two men in your house.
Well, my son's grubby. My son's grubby.
Yeah. But anyway, I can't see any business reverting back to single-sex toilets because it's going to cost them money. But what is the need? Who wakes up in the morning and says, you know what, it'd be a good idea if boys and girls went to the same toilet. It'll be good for them growing up.
Well, it's the transgender debate, isn't it? And people who identify differently. So then there isn't a
So we all have to, because of this amount of people in the country, we all have to follow the same thing. Right, OK. What do you think about that? GBViews at gbnews.com. Get those views coming in. Now we take a look through the back pages today on this, I was going to say Monday.
I know, it feels like Monday to us.
Yes, but it's a Tuesday. A holy mess, says the Metro. The mother of Spain's Football Association president has locked herself up in a church. She's on hunger strike over the fact her son kissed a female player. It's come to that, OK. In the Mail, gang threat to Toon star. Newcastle's captain, Jamal Lascelles, was caught up in a city centre brawl in which it's claimed that a gang of men threatened to shoot him and his brother. Nice. That'll be in the big market, was it? And the Eye, England sink to their lowest ever ranking of 8th ahead of next month's Rugby World Cup. Steve Borthwick's side have fallen 2 places after their defeat to Fiji. Paul Coit on all of this. First of all, the poor mummy of Luis Rubiales. So, bless her.
I know. I don't know whether Luis Rubiales is looking at that thinking it's one of those, Mum, do you really have to go on a hunger strike? This is really embarrassing now. So what he's done, of course, we all know about the kiss, which has now got bigger and bigger and bigger because he refuses to resign as the president of the Spanish Football Federation. It's like, mate, read the room.
Yeah.
Just do the sensible thing. You're not doing yourself any favours. The first apology was, I apologise to anybody who was offended by that, which is... that's no apology, is it? It's no apology at all.
Well, he was kind of saying he's being cancelled. isn't he? Really, it's the kind of like, you don't agree with me. It wasn't, in his opinion, a particularly big deal. Obviously, it was an unsolicited. She didn't agree to it in advance. But in those moments, you don't go, do you mind if I embrace you before?
He says it was consensual. Wow. It's like, what, is there a look that says, mind if I kiss you quickly, full on the lips? Oh, yeah, that's okay. How can you say that?
But Paul, although we're not even showing the right pictures here, we're showing him kissing her on the cheek there. You or I, and I know you well, you know me, I would never think of kissing anyone or kissing Isabel, who's a very dear, close friend of mine, on the lips. I just can't.
I agree.
I can't see.
There's no need for it.
How would you feel? I mean, we're friends, right? So I've kissed you many times.
If we won an Oscar or something, or an Emmy, and we're on stage, and
I was drunk.
Just crazy, excited and happy, and you just want and kiss me on the lips, I'd probably be shocked. I'm not sure I'd go for sexual assault, personally.
But the thing is, you say that, you're friends. Yeah. And we're looking at that, and even then you'd think, well, how would you feel about that? Yeah. This is a guy, he's the president, he is in a position of power. And also he has to represent not only his football federation, but his country. He's standing there. Even if, and I'm trying to look at it, even if you are so excited and you're so impressed, and also it's bizarre that she's got a shirt the wrong way around, which nobody mentions, so it looks like it's back to front.
So, pointing that
but the thing is, maybe you saw the shirt and thought he was kissing the back of her head. I don't know, but he's just gone straight. It's like, it's just a stupid thing to do, and even he must have realised, actually, you know what? And if he'd have come straight out afterwards and said, look, absolutely, heat of the moment, I shouldn't have done it, I'm really sorry to her, but he is so arrogant and pig-headed about this situation. He's not changing. FIFA have banned him. The whole of the federation wants him out. You've got players that are saying they won't play. It's like, what
and his mummy locked in a confession box.
And his mum is thinking, for crying out loud, it's 2 days now and I'm starving and he still hasn't resigned. What am I supposed to do?
I do think, what a great mum. But I do think that's possibly where he developed his flair for the theatrics.
Do you think so? Do you think his mum's like, I will do something?
Yeah, they want things their own way, perhaps.
Maybe it was him playing for Hamilton Academicals, was where he got the flair for the theatrics, because he did play for them. But honestly, it can only go one way. It's like, just step down and apologise, do the right thing. Even if you don't truly agree with it, sometimes you just have to say...
Do the right thing is a motto that should just be applied to all situations. I don't know why it's so hard for people.
Do you know my...
I agree.
Right thing.
Do you know... I presented a programme called Do the Right Thing. Because it was a consumer programme. And basically... I think the right thing is very often the easy thing to do. It's
yes, exactly. And I do, sometimes you can be grumpy, but 100% you always do the right thing.
But when you say the easy thing to do you think, the easy way out or the right...
Do you not think that was a low blow there?
I didn't think
some people are serious. Some people take their job very seriously, and some people then are just called grumpy.
Right, OK. Yeah.
I was talking about your job,
Listen, as long as you do the right thing, that's all that matters. And I don't think Luis...
There's so many stories here about doing the right thing. Which one do you want to go next?
You know what, should we talk a little bit about the US Open, possibly? We'll just quickly cover that. US Open started US Open tennis, and Djokovic is through. Coco Gauff nearly suffered a shock, but Caroline Wozniacki. Now, remember Caroline Wozniacki won the Australian Open. I think she
used to be engaged to Rory, didn't she?
She was engaged to Rory, and he nearly did the right thing and married, and then walked away, didn't he? But the thing is, she has now gone on and she retired January 2020, walked away from tennis, had a couple of kids, and then, for fitness, started playing a little tennis again, and now she's back playing again.
Got the bug again.
She's got the bug again, so she's playing.
Andy Murray has got a very good point. He is often scheduled as the last game on centre court, right? And then it leads to... curfew? They have to stop at
11 o'clock.
That was his undoing against Tsitsipas this year.
Yeah, because he was on top until that
and then
point.
It was late. They paused for the night and he came back and he lost.
The game started at 7:46 in the evening.
Yeah, it's hard.
Because that was the day I was there, and I'm thinking, I've got to get up. And when is Murray going to come out? And then you saw the next day. But of course, it's all about. And Murray's absolutely right. He was talking with the US Open when he plays today, by the way, and he was saying that what Wimbledon were doing was just purely starting games later or starting play later. They were starting about 12:30, just so that then they can get the big games live on TV. And so, of course, Murray didn't start till 7:46. The problem is that he starts getting into a role, loses first set, then starts playing well, Then they have to halt it because of the curfew, start again the next day, and it just doesn't suit him. He's box office, but it's not really good.
Well, you know what they say?
Well, is it do the right thing?
No.
Oh.
Never hurry.
A Murray mint.
Correct.
Yes.
Well done. Oh, the
Very
pressure.
well done, 2 points.
You know what? I felt more pressure than facing a Murray serve.
Yeah.
Two sets down. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Never has. Was there a song with it?
Very good. I can't remember the tune, but it was never Hurry or Murray.
Oh,
Never hurry.
going to do the right thing, simply red. There you go. That's the one. That's our motto for the day.
Thanks,
Luis.
Paul. Are you coming back, Lee?
I will come back, yes.
Good. What time will we see you after 8?
About 7:30 this evening. No, I'll be back about just after 8.
Okay, good lad.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
The mint in there, but
There
we're
is a
down
mint.
that road. Right,
Do they
stay with
still
us.
sell Murray mints?
They do, yeah. I still have a Murray mint. Yeah. Never hurry them, though, whatever you do. They always last a long
I haven't
time.
seen a packet of Murray mints in years.
Do you crunch on the Murray mint, or do you just suck the Murray mint all the way?
I could crunch. I could
gotta
crunch
be
like a
careful.
glacier mint as well.
Yeah, you got to. That's the thing.
You know, my producer always at this point, when we talk about the interesting stuff,
Yeah.
goes, we have to crack on.
Does he really?
I go, why? Why?
Well,
why do we have to crack on?
Yeah.
Why? Why? So we've got some boring minister coming on.
To talk to him today.
Oh, it is. It's crucial.
It's crucial.
It's crucial to talk to him today.
Secretary coming
You're
on.
right. OK.
Stay with us. We're going to be discussing new legislation that could allow sewage to be dumped in British rivers. I mean, it's already happening, but we're going through the papers to discuss that. Norman Baker and Emily Carver next.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Right, we've got Norman Baker, we've got Emily Carver. They've got the newspapers in front of them. Norman, you know, the Mail and the Express. Flights fiasco, says the Mail. Days of chaos, says the Express. You were former Transport Minister?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
And I've also been to air traffic control, which I think is from memories down in Swanage. And I was impressed by the guys down there. They managed a bit of sky each. And they have to react extremely quickly. They have about
Pressurised job.
2 seconds to do something, otherwise they could have, you know, the plane might crash. I'm actually surprised that we've got so many planes in the air, how effective these guys are at controlling matters. But of course, a lot of it is based on technology. If technology breaks down, you have to resort to...
Breaks down or is hacked?
or is hacked. Either way, they have to resort to manual operation, which is deeply slow compared to the operation normally.
Yeah, and the paper's full of the delays and the impact and the human stories. Not an awful lot of detail about what went wrong. Are we clear? And we will ask Mark Harper that question in a moment. But, you know, people will be very concerned about the potential for something so life-threatening as interference with
on the
air traffic
busiest
control.
day of the year.
On the busiest day, is there a safety concern?
Well, I think they'll be operating safely. I mean, they'll have gone to manual control and they'll have made sure safety is the top priority, so I don't have a concern about that. We don't know what's gone wrong because we've not been told what's gone wrong, and we're told that they might know what's gone wrong, but they haven't yet explained that to us. Perhaps Mark will tell us
Sounds like a hacking, though, doesn't it?
It sounds like a
Not
hacking.
that I really know what I'm talking about on this one, but from what I've heard from experts, it sounds like that. Also, it's quite funny, some of the things in the Mail, I think, yesterday was showing a family, they missed their private jet, so they lost £28,000.
Yes.
And they had to holiday, well, not where they intended. So there you go, very sad.
Have you ever flown on a private jet?
I haven't, but I'm sure you have.
Oh, many times. Many times.
Tell me, what's it like?
Well, I tell you, it's like once you have tasted the forbidden fruit, you do not want to go back to anything else. I mean, you go to a lounge, they then take your bags from you, they look at your passport, and you walk out the door and you go up a step onto a plane.
Did you go on private
Absolutely
jet?
incredible.
I've never been in a private jet in my life, and as in fact, I rarely flew. There was one example where I had to go to Germany make a speech in German over in what was East Germany, and I insisted on going by train, and my officials thought I was mad to go by train.
For pleasure or for environmental
No, for environmental reasons. And the irony was that they were all smirking about this. There was a delay at the airport. I got back to Britain quicker by train than they did by air.
I bet that means
Did you offset your carbon, Eamonn?
Sorry, love.
Did you offset your carbon by?
I think the plane would have been flying anyway, whether I was on it or not. So it doesn't make any difference.
I mean, the other issue for Mark, maybe to talk about, I don't know, is the fact that notwithstanding the problems that have covered air traffic control, the airlines appear not to have covered themselves in glory by having websites that crash, phones that aren't answered, and lack of knowledge and information for passengers.
But it always is. So it always is.
It shouldn't be, should it, though?
No, it shouldn't be. But you know, nothing ever changes, Norman. Nothing ever changes. They always want to blame anyone else. They're not going to upset their schedules. It's cost. In fairness to them, this is not their fault. But no, there's never any service. There's never any staff on the ground, and they're not going to change it.
The answer on railways, which I looked at in great detail as a minister, was that people understand problems occur, but they've got very little tolerance for not being told what's going on.
Yeah.
One of the criticisms flying around that the government were a bit slow to react to this yesterday was, of course, Bank Holiday Monday. Everybody's entitled to a bit of time off. I mean, when you were a Transport Minister, if something like this happened, what's the protocol? Because I think the Lib Dems have been saying there should be a COBRA meeting to talk about how to deal with this.
Well, I'm not sure that's necessarily true. That might be over the top, actually, to be honest with you. But what I would say is that the duty minister, either the aviation minister or the transport secretary, will be on duty. If they're not on duty, there's a duty minister who will be there, one of the ministers who will take responsibility for anything which occurs on that day. So there's always a minister there. There's always civil servants in action 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So, in a sense, there's no reason not to react to it.
I do feel sorry for people who were on the tarmac for 9 hours.
Especially if they had children.
On the plane. Oh, that's horrible. An hour is
Right.
enough.
Well, let's now talk about. There's a story in the Guardian. This is front page, and they're saying rivers at risk as Gove rips up rules on new housing. Meaning what?
Yes, so he's ripping up these water pollution rules which have prevented a lot of houses from being built. People who are in support of more housing say that they've been implemented too strictly by Natural England, I think it's called, by the Quango. And he wants to rip them up to get house building. So lots of young people will be very happy who want to get on the property ladder, but they've also mentioned, you know, people from Greenpeace and other environmental groups saying this will be a disaster for water pollution, etc., etc., etc. So it's which one do you prioritise?
Gosh, you see, for Michael Gove, because he was, correct me if I'm wrong, he was Environment Secretary for a while. He's pretty effective and popular Environment Secretary. I mean, this just seems like, you know,
this
really
is
bad decision.
It's politically mad, whatever you think about the rights and wrongs of it. It's politically mad. The Tories have already got themselves in a big problem with sewage disposal into our rivers and into our seas. It's not popular with the public. It's a big issue the opposition parties are going on. And this is now making it worse.
But Norman, a lot of people say that these rules are being too strictly implemented, so cutting back on some of this red tape would be a good thing. And what's more important, people having houses to live in, I would argue.
Why isn't it possible to have houses for people to live in without polluting our rivers?
Well, indeed, and the point is the houses will arrive in several years' time. The sewage will occur immediately.
None of us want polluted water. It's bad.
No, none of us want polluted water, but apparently these regulations are being implemented too strictly currently.
It's a neutrality thing. The rivers are no worse as a consequence of house building. That's where it is at the moment.
See, meanwhile, there was a story ran in the papers yesterday about scientific research into, it's hardly surprising, that processed food is killing all of us, right? And then I see a story today, more blood pressure checks will save lives. No. Banning processed food and finding out what's in the food that we eat will save lives. No one seems to be... We talk about polluting water, we talk about building houses, we talk about airport chaos, whatever. But no one seems to be concerned at all about what we eat.
Well, I mean, you could ban all processed food, but it might remove quite a lot of joy from people's lives.
What joy? Most of us...
I mean, you know...
If you actually know what you're eating, and it's so bland. We were talking about Britain's favourite sandwich
but like
last
a loaf
week.
of bread is processed food.
Yes, of course it is. But we could have it unprocessed.
Maybe people just need to,
Flour is processed. I think
limit.
it's impossible to have bread that's unprocessed, isn't it? I mean, basically, if you want unprocessed food, you have to do the caveman diet. So you walk into a supermarket and you think, what would a caveman recognise inside this building? Anything that's in a packet, anything that's in foil, they basically would only recognise the vegetables and the meat. And pretty much...
And an egg.
And an egg. And everything else you shouldn't touch.
Well, this is the Jordan Peterson diet. He only ate steak, but I think he then got some issues off the back of that.
You should have a balanced diet, but you've got to try and find things that you would, you know, as a caveman, be able to eat without processing.
Well, I'm saying go into a motorway service station and try the caveman diet.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you can't. You're right.
Yeah.
There is too much of it. There is too much of it.
Norman, meanwhile, we have this story in the Mirror. Defibrillators on average of 19 minutes walk away. So this is, you know, an attempt to help people survive from heart attacks. My own father died from a heart attack on a country road. But I don't see, you've then got to have a defibrillator and you then got to be able to use it. And you've then got to rely on an ambulance turning up on time. Is this all a bit too simple? Is this the answer, having defibrillators closer?
I should say my father died of a heart attack as well. 19 minutes is the average time to get to one, which seems, I don't know whether that's good or bad compared to the European average. It seems to me not too bad, 19 minutes. But of course, every minute counts when a heart attack has occurred. There's 30,000 out of hospital cardiac arrests each year, and just 8% chance of survival. So they do make a difference if you're able to get to one. I think one of the issues actually is nobody knows where they are. And it'd be quite useful if councils, local councils, actually made people aware where they were in their patch.
If you get to one in a quick amount of time, will that essentially keep you alive?
Yes, it will do.
And you know, you're saying, do you know how to work them? The foolproof really clearly speaks to you, tells you what to do.
They're not
the
difficult.
problem where I used to live in London until a few weeks ago, everyone was nicking them.
Nicking them?
Yeah, there was one on...
Vandalising them like...
stealing them, because they cost a lot of money.
But what did you do with one?
Well, you sell them somewhere else.
What a sick thing to do.
I know.
Yes, isn't it?
Oh, there's always sickos there.
Yeah.
Oh, I should point out, in case someone else is having a heart attack, my private plane flying was all in the line of duty. I was forced to do it because I was filming programmes.
We've got the Transport Secretary. He's here. We've only got 3 minutes to talk to him, so I have to interrupt the papers very quickly. Good morning to you, Secretary of State, and thanks for joining us. Look, we've got lots of people in airports this morning watching us on the TV, very concerned about how they're going to get home. We understand the government is doing everything they can. What does that mean?
Well, look, first of all, I just want to reiterate what the National Air Traffic Services said yesterday, to apologise, obviously, for all the disruption that everyone's had yesterday. The system was fixed yesterday afternoon, and things are getting back to normal, but there's obviously some disruption that's going to continue today for people, and I know thousands of people have been impacted. Airlines will be stepping up, I hope, to their responsibilities to make sure that they get people back home, get them on an alternative flight and deal with food and drink and accommodation in the meantime. And I drew everyone's attention yesterday to the rules that exist to protect people. And I know people are working at NAT's working very hard and airlines are working very hard to get things back to normal, and my department's assisting where we can.
But it wasn't the airline's fault. That's the thing.
No, it was a problem with National Air Traffic Services yesterday morning. There was a technical issue, and because their top priority is safety, it meant they had to revert to using a backup manual process for flight systems, which meant they had to reduce the capacity in the system, which is what's caused the disruption. But airlines have a responsibility now to ensure people can get back to where they were getting to and to look after them while they're doing.
Can I ask you, Minister, are you aware if this was a hack? Was this a breach of security, or was this just a technical fault?
No, this was a technical fault. We do not think there was a cyber security incident. And what will happen now with an incident of this magnitude is there will be an independent review. The Civil Aviation Authority will be putting together a report in the coming days, which obviously I will take a look at to see whether there are lessons to learn for the future, to see whether we can reduce the impact of this again. It's nearly a decade since there was a significant issue like this, and we want to make sure it doesn't happen again because of all the disruption that's been caused to thousands of passengers across the country.
We only have
around the world.
a minute left. Sorry to rush you, but I want to ask you about the ultra-low emission zone being expanded today to every borough within the M25. Do you think the timing is right in all of this with the cost of living crisis?
No, I don't. I don't have the power to stop it coming into force. That's a decision for the Mayor of London, backed by the Labour leader. I think he should think again. He says this is to do with air quality. His own impact assessment says this will only have a minor to negligible effect on air pollution. It's not about air pollution. It's about a money-raising exercise, and this is absolutely not the time to be putting all those costs on hard-pressed and hard-working Londoners and those in the area outside London.
So if you had the power, you would stop it?
Yes, I don't have the power, though. We've looked at this really carefully. Despite what some people say, including on your channel, I don't have the legal power to block it. That's a decision for the Mayor of London, and it's not too late for him to think again.
OK, Secretary of State for Transport, Mark Harper, thanks very much indeed for your time this morning. Stay with us. We've got lots more coming your way, including your forecast with Craig Snell.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. I'm Craig Snell. Well, looking ahead to today, it's a mixture of sunshine and scattered showers for most of us, but it'll be pretty breezy up across the north. So we start the day with this band of showery rain across northern England, parts of Wales. That will sink its way southeastwards as the day goes on. Behind it for Scotland and Northern Ireland, really some blustery showers from the word go. The heaviest of these showers probably up across northern Scotland. I think come the afternoon, best of any drier and brighter weather will be across northern England. And in any sunshine, not feeling too bad for the time of year. In the south, we could see highs reaching around 21 or 22 degrees. Into the evening, this band of rain across the Midlands will sink its way southeastwards, clearing the southeast as we go through the course of the night. That will leave a lot of southern parts of the UK dry and clear, where further north, continuation of some showers. And again, some of these could be potentially heavy up across the far north of Scotland. Under the clear skies, turning a little bit cool for the time of year. Could see lows falling down to about 5 to 6 degrees in some prone spots. But that sets us up for a fairly bright start across many parts of the country, and I'm hopeful a little bit more in the way of sunshine around compared to today. But still the risk of some showers. Some of these showers could be quite heavy. Initially across northern England, they may well sink their way into parts of the Midlands and East Anglia as the day goes on, with perhaps the driest and brightest conditions tomorrow down towards the southwest. Highs very similar to what we'll be seeing today.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
delicious?
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train. Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Airline chaos will continue for weeks after tens of thousands are stranded by the worst day of disruption in over a decade.
Hello there, very good morning. Good to see you. The time 7 o'clock on this Tuesday morning. It may feel like a Monday to you, but no, it is a Tuesday. It is the 29th of August, and you're tuned into breakfast here on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
Here's what's leading the news this morning. Travellers are facing a week of serious disruption following a network-wide failure of the UK's air traffic control system. The meltdown has so far caused thousands of cancellations and severe delays.
The controversial expansion of London's ultra-low emission zone has come into effect today, and most roads within the M25 are under its supervision. The bid by the Mayor to improve the city's environment has been met with a challenge from some motorists concerned about the extra charges involved.
It comes as a Labour frontbencher hits out at the Mayor over the scheme, calling on him to delay its introduction.
And regional leaders of the Spanish Football Federation have called for the immediate resignation of their president, Luis Rubiales, after he kissed player Jenny Hermoso on the lips.
All of that, and we'll also have your latest forecast.
Are we getting any reaction to that, are we?
We are actually, yeah, a few reactions coming through. Come on, guys, the Spanish kiss it's not right, but can we move on? There are far more important issues to focus on.
Well, very important to Mr. Mann's mother, who's locked herself up in a church in protest with all of this. On a hunger strike. I mean, she's heartbroken about all of this. But, you know, it was without consent, says the lady who was kissed, and is the president reading the room right, reading the mood right on all of this. So keep your comments coming in, and we'll bring you the latest forecast, of course, with Craig Snell.
Good morning. It's the final week of August. Will we see any dry and fine weather before we move into autumn? Find out in a little bit.
Let's go to our top story this morning, and air travellers are facing days of disruption after a major system failure in Britain's air traffic control system, which left tens of thousands stranded on one of the busiest travel days of the year.
Coincidence, bad luck, or a hack? It's being claimed it's a technical fault that caused 80% of flights to be delayed, 1,200 cancelled in the single worst day of air traffic disruption since the Icelandic volcano eruption, and that was 13 years ago.
Well, in the last few moments, we spoke to the Transport Secretary, Mark Harper. He told us there will be an independent review by the Civil Aviation Authority.
No, this was a technical fault. We do not think there was a cyber security incident. And what will happen now with an incident of this magnitude is there will be an independent review. The Civil Aviation Authority will be putting together a report in the coming days, which obviously I will take a look at to see whether there are lessons to learn for the future, to see whether we can reduce the impact of this again. It's nearly a decade since there was a significant issue like this, and we want to make sure it doesn't happen again because of all the disruption that's been caused to thousands of passengers across the country and around the world.
Reassured by what you heard there from the Transport Secretary. We've been appealing for GB viewers to get in touch this morning if they are stranded and to let us know their version, their story, what's been happening to them. 200,000 people, Simon Calder was estimating, being affected. And Paul Ray sent an email in first thing this morning. He's stranded in Copenhagen. Good morning to you, Paul.
Good morning.
Well, what's your night been like?
Horrendous. There's people sleeping in the airports on the chairs and the floors, purely because there's been no help from the airlines. They've told us to go and find our own accommodation, and then we'll claim it, and then we'll have to claim it back. But that will take 2 to 5 days. So people just sleeping in the airports, hoping to hear some news. There's no flights that are available until Friday. They've all been booked up, so as you imagine, tensions is high here.
Who are you flying with, Paul?
So I'm flying with Norwegian Airlines. We got on our flight yesterday. It was due to fly at 1. We boarded about 1:30. Around 2 o'clock, the pilot had made an announcement saying there's going to be a delay as there was an issue in the UK, but couldn't tell us anything more. About 2:15, 2:20, he then made an announcement saying that the air traffic control, there was a crash and there was no flights coming in and out of the UK.
And Paul, can I ask you, what were you doing in Copenhagen? Was it business or pleasure? And it looks as though you're still in the airport, so you're going to just tough it out. And, you know, did you try and sleep on the floor there last night?
I was on the way back from Turkey on a holiday. We thought we'd just pop over to Copenhagen for a few hours with my 11-year-old son to, you know, venture while I was on holiday. Then we got caught on this delay or cancellation, shall I say? And yeah, we're gonna tough it out. The hotels have put their prices up in a demand way, where it's £277, £280 a night, which is kind of not feasible for people who've sort of just come back on holiday.
Gosh.
You know, we was looking at our rights. There was no actual reps in the airport. We had to go to Mendes Aviation, who were looking after everyone. They were handing out a bits of paper saying what your rights were, and basically find your own accommodation, find your own food, etc., and you can claim it back.
Well, look, you're not going to sit there until Friday, really. You're not going to sit on an airport chair until then, are you? You're going to have to take a hit.
Well, I've been looking at the flights. You know, you can go via, you know, to go to Manchester, where my destination is going to be. I need to go to Oslo, and then from Oslo on to Manchester, which is going to be another 8, 9, 10-hour travel. But, you know, people, as I said, people are not going to be sitting down. I don't want to be sitting in the airport until Friday, hoping for the next, you know, plane to take us back home.
And goodness me, an 11-year-old boy with you, presumably very tired this morning, and you want to go away on holiday and come back rested. Term time's approaching. Gosh, you don't even know if you'll be back in time for the start of school with a tired child.
Well, this is the fact that, you know, he starts his secondary school on the 4th of September. I wanted a nice couple of days sort of rest for him to be able to get ready for school. And yeah, it's just, you know, it's our life's now just been turned upside down. We don't know what's happening, and you know, I'm not the only one in the boat. There's loads of people in the airport, up and down on phones, on the mobiles, looking for flights. Some are getting a train to France, then ferry, then another train from it. It's chaotic.
Yeah.
And what we've been told is, because it's not the airline's fault, the compensation scheme will not be enough.
Will not cover it. Yeah.
It's down to you there.
Where do you live?
A lot of people are losing out a lot of money.
Where do you live in the UK, Paul?
Oh, I live in Grimsby.
Very nice.
So the nearest
from Manchester.
Yeah. So your journey's not over. Absolutely terrible. I feel for you. I can smell you from here, because obviously hygiene's good. I mean, I'm not making light of this. I mean, if I was sitting there going, I'm wearing the same clothes all week, I've got nowhere to wash them, you've got all these horrible, horrible things. But you know, Paul, it's never anybody's fault. It's never anybody's fault. They don't care. care. You're not their responsibility. It has to fall at the foot of the air traffic control people. Whether we will find out whether it was... it just seems to me an incredible coincidence that the system breaks down on the busiest day of the year. We don't know if it was a genuine technical fault or if it is a hack. But terrible, terrible what it's done to people's lives. And we think about your son as well, and what a big start it will be for him next week. So whatever you do, mate, I hope it works out for you.
Can I just ask, Paul, what's the mood there? Are there some angry people? Have you seen people venting their frustration, or are people being quite British about it?
No, we started off with the good old British queues, and then after a while, you know, when no one was getting... There's no communication here. You know, everyone's just left to it. Everyone keeps queuing up at the same time. Obviously, tiredness, fatigue's setting in, you know, and everyone's starting to sort of... The nerves are getting to people. You know, there's got to be accountability somewhere along the line of how it's happened, and, you know, the poor holiday goer is going to be left out of pocket.
Yeah. If it's any consolation, Paul, it's the same everywhere. David, who's sitting in Tenerife, he said not a single supervisor from EasyJet to provide support, no flights to book Tenerife to the UK and to Northwest airports in particular. Burga Airport, where's that?
I don't know where that is, Burga.
Oh, never heard of that. Sounds like Argentina or something. But look at this. This is Chris Heaton, and Chris says he's got a 4-month-old son and a 1one-year-old as well.
Nothing worse.
Oh, goodness me. Not an EasyJet representative in sight, is it? With any information on what's happening, absolute disgrace. It's just a same story everywhere. All the airports that we're seeing all over Europe as well.
Paul, will you do us a favour? Will you stay in touch with us? Let us know. If you're still there this time tomorrow, we'll check back in with you, and perhaps we'll follow you on your way home. Keep a diary for us, and we'd love to hear from you, and we wish you the very best of luck.
Thank you very much, all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. And of course, it's not just affecting you if you're in Norway or in where was that?
Burga was Bulgaria.
Bulgaria or whatever. If you're in Belfast, if you're in Glasgow, if you're in Leeds, if you're trying to get into London from anywhere, you're trying to fly domestically. Let us hear what's happening there. Has that system gone down as well?
Well, it has a knock-on as well. As he was saying, some people are going to be trying to get ferries across the channel. It's a big story, this. We're going to speak to the Sun's travel editor, Lisa Minot, trying to get to the bottom exactly of what your rights are if you are affected, Lisa Minot. Lots of rumours out there that these airlines don't have to provide accommodation for you. Other people saying that they're getting very little information. So what are people entitled to ask for? Good morning.
It very much depends if your flight has been delayed or cancelled. And after yesterday's chaos, most people, their flights have been cancelled. Now, basically, you should be required the right to either be given a refund. I would never suggest taking that as the first option, because it is the airline's responsibility to make sure that they get you back to your destination at the earliest opportunity, be that with another airline. Now, because of the scale of the disruption, just the sheer number of people whose flights have been impacted by this, I do appreciate that for many people saying that there's just nobody here, there's no one to talk to, is unfortunately the time where actually we are going to have to sometimes take a little bit of that responsibility ourselves. Right, how am I going to get myself home? Because as you see, the airlines are just in chaos. You look at the flight schedules for this morning, Heathrow is significant disruption in terms of the flights they're cancelling tend to be the ones that are either local, domestic flights, or short-haul hops where they've got lots of flights in the day. Now, that does mean that they're trying to cancel the flights. People have got other options. LNER, the train company, have said that anyone whose flight has been impacted domestically, like flying between London and Scotland, can travel for free on their express trains today. So, I mean, there are other options there if you're flying domestically. That's of absolutely no use to somebody who is on an island like Tenerife or Lanzarote. Now, airlines are meant to, they have a duty of care to provide you with food and accommodation, should the flight be delayed or cancelled. The reality of this is it's the busiest time of year. There just aren't the hotel rooms out there. So again, it's up to you, I think, to make sure that you're being proactive and trying to find yourself somewhere to go until you can get your flight home. Keep every receipt and keep those expenses reasonable. You can't start checking into the Ritz. It's got to be reasonable. And that is the problem at this time of year, where everything is going to be so expensive just because of that sheer demand.
But, you know, reasonable is a two-way process, isn't it, Lisa, at the end of the day? And I would be very surprised if any of these airlines have people on the ground. They don't care. They sell you the ticket. That's their responsibility. Gone. You try to queue up on a phone line, to use an email address from them, text them, whatever. Texting's going to be about the best you're going to get. And the people aren't being given advice because these airlines, they don't care.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying that everyone is having the greatest of experiences at the moment. Lots of people have endured a night of hell, you know, sitting on airport floors. But you have to imagine that this is unprecedented for airlines. As the Transport Minister was saying, it's 10 years since the last time we had any kind of level of disruption like that. And that was from a national disaster, a volcano erupting. This is a very different situation. It isn't the airline's fault. And I think behind the scenes, you've got to understand there's a huge amount of logistical nightmares they're having to deal with in terms of getting planes in the right places, crew that have gone out of hours are not able to work because they've been on call or on hold for too long. It is a real nightmare for them to actually get their head around. What I would suggest people do is, you know, start to be proactive and look themselves. If you're in mainland Europe, look at the train network. The train network across mainland Europe is fantastic. And it might be that you'll be able to get yourself back to the UK that way. I'm not saying it's going to be cheap. And again, keep every receipt because you will be able to claim that back from your airline. Other ways of doing it is to perhaps look on the flight comparison sites. So the likes of Kayak or Skyscanner, they'll give you the various options. A lot of those will involve perhaps 2 stops, maybe 1 or 2 stops to get you to your destination. Make sure you look at those flights carefully because you don't want to give yourself too little time to transfer between various different terminals and airports. There will be ways, but it is going to involve a little bit of research and a huge amount of patience. And I can understand for many people this is an absolutely horrific situation.
Yeah, and this is a story that I think is going to continue for the rest of the week. And as Simon Calder said to us last hour, it's going to get worse before it gets better. Lisa Minot, thanks very much indeed for talking to us this morning. We really appreciate it. Perhaps we'll talk to you again later in the week.
Yes.
Thank you. ULEZ, let's talk about that now. It's expanding in London. Is it going to expand and come your way? Sadiq Khan's controversial plan comes into force today after months of legal battles and backlash from motorists.
The scheme will mean owners of older and more polluting vehicles who live and work inside London's M25 will have to pay a daily charge of £12.50, which soon adds up, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Joining us this morning, Matthew Goodwin-Freeman. He's a Conservative councillor for Harrow. Matthew, this will affect Harrow, obviously. What's your view? What's your feeling?
Well, you talk about not being able to get through to the airlines. We've not been able to get through to the Mayor of London for the last however many months about this. Where I'm a councillor in Hatch End, we are right on the border of the zone. So you could turn left out of your driveway and not pay ULEZ. You could turn right out of your driveway and pay ULEZ. It's that ridiculous. And this is just something that Londoners across outer London have said for months and months. And Sadiq Khan just doesn't care. And today is a really, really sad day. I've already had emails in my inbox this morning saying, I'm not driving my car anymore. I don't know what to do. And I feel so sorry for those people because I've tried everything to get through to this mayor. And he is just utterly, I cannot even put this into words how sad a day this is for Londoners.
Yeah, well, Sadiq Khan has said he's found this a very difficult decision. We should point out this was a Boris Johnson invention and he initially intended to expand it in 2020, which is obviously being put back now to 2023. But I just want to ask you, because I understand 6 out of 7 of the boroughs today that this expansion is being imposed on are actually refusing to put up the signs, and there are some legal challenges to the signs as well. Are you one of those boroughs? Tell us more about all of this.
So the 6 out of 7 boroughs is the boroughs just outside of London, just outside the zone, refusing to put up the warning signs that you'll be entering the ULEZ zone in a few more miles. That's the point, and that's opening up loopholes for people to challenge and appeal their tickets and all those different things. We in Harrow, we were one of the 5 boroughs who took Sadiq Khan's ULEZ to court. We tried our best to represent Londoners who did not want ULEZ, and unfortunately we didn't win. But we have tried everything we can. We are doing everything we can to make this as frustrating as we can for this rogue mayor who's now going against his own party line. And I know you said about, obviously, the scheme was started by Boris Johnson. That's completely true. But that was in central London, where there's still a problem with air quality. And on the London Underground, there is still a problem with air quality. So it's a targeted response. But the thing with this scheme has been, it's just been a blanket rollout to outer London, where I was the other day filming a segment with one of those recording meters of the air quality. It was at 0.5, which 10 is the moment where the WHO starts to get worried. It was at 0.5. But if I wanted to go there, I would have to pay £12.50 if I had a non-compliant car.
That's interesting. I mean, the TfL say that every borough is breathing air that exceeds the World Health Organization guideline. Perhaps the reason it was so low is that 90% of cars in the outer remits of London now are ULEZ compliant already.
Well, again, this is one of Sadiq Khan's misleading facts, because it's 9 out of 10 cars seen in outer London are compliant. And that's from a set number of the cameras, which we found out in the court case. It's a set number of cameras that have been put up that then they've plucked that data from. It's not from every single camera. It's not taking in all of the data. And remember, a lot of people are saying, I'm not driving my car. So it's on their driveways and it's not driving about being seen by those cameras.
Yeah.
And obviously we've seen some of those cameras get taken down as well. No, look, remember, this is the scheme that from day one, Londoners have been against. 66% of Londoners were against it in the consultation. We've seen the stats about 4,000 premature deaths be debunked as misleading. We've seen the things about the support people can get, £2,000. Well, it's actually up to £2,000. And I know people who've been offered 200 quid for their car, and it's worth a lot more. You know, we've seen him call people against ULEZ far-right COVID deniers, vaccine deniers. I was in the room when he said those comments. And we've seen everything that happened last weekend with the deputy mayor suddenly getting involved with the science reports and you know, going back to the universities and saying, could you reword this to be a bit more favourable? This has been a scandal from day one. And if it was anybody else who was mayor, they would have had the respect for the office and resigned by now.
But, you know, there's two sides to every story. You could say, you know, this is a health issue, as the mayor will say. But then I look at things like we had pictures we were running earlier on of the Notting Hill Carnival. And, I mean, say what you like, but the rubbish left behind, the pollution left behind because of that. I mean, if Khan was serious about cleaning up everything, then he would put a stop to that. But, you know, it's rules for one, rules for another, I suppose, in these things. But ULEZ is his thing. And is it a good thing starting today, or is it creating misery for you? We'll say goodbye to you, my friend. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
I've got an interesting email I want to share with you. Francis has been in touch. Quite a moving but probably relatable story. When I retired from the NHS 7 years ago, I used a lot of my savings to buy a touring caravan and an 18-month-old car with the aim to spend a happy retirement. When I bought the car, the government was promoting the purchase of diesel cars. This seems to have been forgotten. I live a mile outside the ULEZ boundary and 3 miles from my 2 sons and their families. Most of my friends are within the ULEZ. I now won't be able to go and see them. Terrible, isn't it? Work hard all your life, save up all your money, spend all your savings on a vehicle like that, and then you're, you know, seeing it as a tax, really, on going to visit your family. Let us know your views, your experiences, and as Eamonn's been saying this morning, this isn't just a London issue, is it, either? These clean air zones are being imposed all over the country. Sheffield
is where we're going to now, and it's been met with ongoing protests there from people working and living in the city. Let's go to Anna Riley. She spoke to the owner of a minibus company, and here's their story.
To enter the clean air zone in Sheffield, there's a £50 charge for lorries, buses and coaches, and £10 for taxis and vans that don't meet emission standards set by the council. Kai Moynihan runs minibus and coach firm Kai's Executive Travel, and so far has 62 fines racking up to £15,000. But he says the trips were for taking children to school, which are exempt.
So they put your exemption with Sheffield City Council. They don't seem to be even looking at the fines. They just double the fine and then send it you back. Send it to a tribunal. You get in touch with the tribunal. Sheffield City Council don't turn up at the tribunal. So you've wasted all your time and then eventually it just gets cancelled at the tribunal.
Kai fears the Clean Air Zone scheme is another tax that could force businesses like his to close.
Pay to pollute, really, in my eyes. Pay you £50. You can go in, but you're still polluting, you're still making the air. So if I'm paying the money, it's not making the air any cleaner. I think what Sheffield City Council want you to do, they want you to basically go and buy a vehicle, a Euro 6 vehicle, and end of the day, the £40,000-50,000 for a minibus, £200,000 for a coach. Who can afford that at the moment with living crisis? It's crippling businesses, it's absolutely crippling.
The council was unable to discuss individual circumstances like Kai's, but said hundreds of people in Sheffield die prematurely each year due to air pollution. It impacts health at every stage of life, including unborn babies. Introducing any new measure like the Clean Air Zone comes with challenges. We care about businesses and want to see them thrive and look at the concerns and find a suitable solution. Other businesses also worry for the future of trade in Sheffield due to the Clean Air Zone charges.
I've had to sell my van because it weren't a Euro 6 van. I'm a working lad and I can't afford 30 grand, 25, 30 grand to buy a new Euro 6 van. Sheffield City Centre now, it's dying a death slowly, and this Clean Air Zone is not helping matters.
And now, 6 months from its launch, here's what people in Sheffield think to the Clean Air Zone.
It's an absolute shambles, the Clean Air Zone services. So, yeah, I think it's ridiculous, to be honest.
It was going to have to come, but I think it's a bit too early now. The air is for breathing, not poisoning.
I think it's a way for the council to make more money. Because let's face it, the lorries, cars, vans, everything is still going to drive through the Clean Air Zone. So we're still going to have the emissions. It's just that the council will be filling the coffers.
I do support it, by all means.
For now, Kai continues to wade through fines and is planning a protest against the council along with minibus firms like his. Anna Riley, GB News, Sheffield.
Well, that's the story in Sheffield. I remember 1986 to 1991, I lived in Manchester.
Yeah.
And there was terrible uproar because they were digging up the city centre to put down a tram system. And honestly, nothing was ever going to be the same again. Correct me if I'm wrong, those of you who live in Manchester, but it's the best thing since sliced bread, getting this tram around Manchester. I know the disruption, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm now only a tourist in and out of Manchester, but, you know, it certainly seems to have speeded so many things up, getting people from A to B, out to the Trafford Centre, out to Old Trafford, out to, you know, the airport, all sorts of things like that. Was it worth it in the end? Let us know. gbviews@gbnews.com.
We're going to take a look at your forecast now. It was pretty decent bank holidays. They go rained all day Saturday for me, but rest of the weekend was OK, wasn't it? Here's Craig Snell with what you can expect for today.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. I'm Craig Snell. Well, looking ahead to today, it's a mixture of sunshine and scattered showers for most of us, but it'll be pretty breezy up across the north. So we start the day with this band of showery rain across northern England, parts of Wales. That will sink its way southeastwards as the day goes on. Behind it for Scotland and Northern Ireland, really some blustery showers from the word go. The heaviest of these showers probably up across northern Scotland. I think come the afternoon, best of any drier and brighter weather will be across northern England. And in any sunshine, not feeling too bad for the time of year. In the south, we could see highs reaching around 21 or 22 degrees. Into the evening, this band of rain across the Midlands will sink its way southeastwards, clearing the southeast as we go through the course of the night. That will leave a lot of southern parts of the UK dry and clear, where further north, continuation of some showers. And again, some of these could be potentially heavy up across the far north of Scotland. Under the clear skies, turning a little bit cool for the time of year, could see lows falling down to about 5 to 6 degrees in some prone spots. But that will set us up for a fairly bright start across many parts of the country, and I'm hopeful a little bit more in the way of sunshine around compared to today. But still the risk of some showers. Some of these showers could be quite heavy. Initially across northern England, they may well sink their way into parts of the Midlands and East Anglia as the day goes on, with perhaps the driest and brightest conditions tomorrow down towards the southwest. Highs very similar to what we'll be seeing today.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Right, we've been talking about toilets this morning, haven't we? 28
Yes.
minutes past 7.
Yes.
And a group of teenage girls have now written to the Prime Minister urging him to keep single-sex toilets in schools. We'll be debating if it's a time to put an end to the trend of gender-neutral bathrooms. That's next.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6 is Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com. You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
For your company on this Tuesday morning, Eamonn and Isabel here with breakfast on GB News. Still to come this morning.
Just after 8, we'll hear both sides of the argument on the expansion of ULEZ, that's the ultra-low emission zone, from a lung health campaigner, Mums for Lungs, and a care worker concerned about the zone's effect on the vulnerable and the elderly.
Maybe you're one of those people. Get in touch with us. Right, the government in Catalan, which is what, part of Spain, isn't it right?
Well, yeah.
Passes laws to allow women to sunbathe topless. we're going to debate
Don't
if
start
it is...
sniggering.
Well, I'm thinking they pass a law for this, right? So basically, I suppose up until then you could be apprehended for some...
Yes, well, Spain kind of invented it, didn't they? I mean, when you go to Spain, virtually everyone's topless.
But why would they need to pass a law to make it...
Well, because, yeah, people have been given grief, I guess.
Or fines or charges or something. So anyway, we're asking you if it is the way forward. In the studio, we'll have an etiquette expert and a naturist, which means...
Naturist.
No, oh, right.
Yeah, a nudist.
Right. Well, can that be a naturist?
Never heard it called a naturist, but...
Well, you would say natural.
Oh, right, yeah, you're doing a French accent.
Naturist.
Natural.
You can join in any of our... Well, anyway, they don't wear their clothes.
Nature.
And the whole thing is, do breasts offend you? Believe me, if you saw mine, they would offend. They would offend you.
Amen.
But they would. I would worry about going topless. My moobs are completely out of control now.
But if you've got a fabulous body, or indeed if you don't and you don't care, why shouldn't you be able to bear it? Grin and bear it. That's what I say.
You would grin if I bared it, I'll tell you. gbviews@gbnews.com or tweet at GBNews.
Right, here's the story.
Yeah, toilets, we have them here, called gender neutral. I don't like them. I've said it before.
Not a fan.
We're not a fan.
I was in the loo with you this morning, not, the actual same
How did
cubicle.
you know I was there? I didn't see you.
Yeah, well, I was busy putting my microphone on and you were in the end cubicle.
Can you hear me?
Well, luckily we had GB News blaring out.
Do you know what
my
tinkle sounds like then? Is that
like I said, luckily I could hear the GB News jingle, which drowned out any water closet sounds. But Jackie, she's emailed saying, I'm disgusted at the thought of mixed gender toilets. And mixed toilets are a terrible idea for all sexes.
What's the point? What is the point? 0.1% of people identify in the last census as transgender. 0.5%, so less than 1%, people think transgender toilets or gender-neutral toilets are a good idea. Let's debate this. Parent and medical clinician Isabel who thinks we should not have gender-neutral toilets in schools, and the parent and inclusion consultant Kirsty Nicole Hadley. Kirsty, you say, yes, we should have them. Why, when the percentage of people identifying as transgender or worried about this issue is so low?
Well, first of all, I think that, it's important to say that I'm pro everyone having the right to a safe space. And I think that the situation here, though, is that one person's safety cannot be at the expense of another's. And I read this piece earlier, and the language used in debates like this is really important and also really powerful. And one of the sentences in the letter says there is no justifiable reason to introduce dangerous and uncomfortable spaces into schools, right? But a space itself can't be dangerous, can it? So this intimates that the people using the space are dangerous. If something dangerous has happened, then that's really serious and it needs to be addressed. But if it hasn't, then I feel like it's the language itself that is dangerous, because it's sort of weaponizing the language against the small amount of people that are very pro.
Why not just have a third block of toilets? Why not just have male toilets, female toilets, and toilets for anybody who doesn't identify with either or whatever? Would that not make matters much more easy, Izzy?
Yeah, so I mean, I basically don't believe that there should be any such, confusion with toilets. For the longest time, we have had separate toilets for both male and female for their biological sexes. I don't have any idea why adults are pushing this into schools. It seems quite perverse to me to inflict young children with adult sexual, ideas, because this ultimately, no child goes home saying, I want gender neutral toilets. So why are you deliberately inbreeding this into children so they can start thinking about, well, I want to go to toilets with boys, or I want to go to toilets with girls. And ultimately, this is more push onto females. It's females that have to give up their spaces. It's females that should feel some way that, you know, boys should have to, you know, come in with them, because girls, you know, even girls who identify with being a boy do not ask to go into male toilets. So why are adults always using children, in particular in schools where the parents are not there? Why is it always children that are being used to somehow carry an agenda for adults?
Kirsty, Kirsty, am I right in thinking your child is gender neutral, identifies as they? And I wonder, is your child one that would want one of these spaces or would want to use a gender neutral loo?
I would say that my child has been exploring their gender identity, and where I live in the UK is Brighton down south, and you know, I think that we are very open-minded down here. We are very sort of you know, like people just need to be happy, and I think that as it goes back to what I said before about one person's safety shouldn't be at the expense of another's. And I think I understand if there are girls that want to use a girls' toilet, but we also have to understand that there are a growing number of children that actually are requesting gender-neutral toilets. I mean, I prefer gender-neutral toilets. And I think one of the reference points in the girls' letter also, which I agreed with, is that there are girls that aren't using the toilet because they don't feel safe and they're getting UTIs. Well, this happens with boys as well, and trans people as well. If they haven't got a safe space to go to the toilet, there was a school locally to us where lots of kids were developing impacted bowels. So it's not, to me, this isn't even a gender
I'm sure
issue.
you're getting quite
issue.
irate over Kirsty's idea there about experimenting, that you're opening this up and kids say, hey, why don't you try this? You might like this.
I mean, I can assure that boys are not, you know, getting UTIs because they're not going to the toilet, because they cannot go into the toilet with girls. I mean, I think that's a ridiculous claim, completely. I mean, we have generations of, you know, young children not developing UTIs because boys, you know, are unable to go into the toilets with girls. Again, I believe that this is parenting. I believe that this is coming from the parents. You know, if my child said to me he wanted to go into a toilet with girls, I would correct him and say, you're a boy. You need to go into the toilet with other boys. You know, if parents are not able to basically, if your child cannot come home and speak to a parent and the parent cannot give sensible advice, this is the problem. You know, children go to school to learn, and they shouldn't be, you know, thrown into the transgender debate and be used in order to push this. And it gets pushed into the schools, so therefore it should be pushed into the wider society.
Yeah, well,
and it is wrong. It's really, really wrong to be using schools and children in this way.
Yeah, and many people might agree with you, but we're hearing stories of teachers being sacked when they don't refer to a person as a cat in school, and teachers have to respond to demands from children, and it is a fact that the demands have significantly increased in the last 5 years from kids for these gender-neutral toilets.
Because of the parents, and because of the wider society, organisations being fed into schools to be allowed to basically, you know, ramble over children and try to indoctrinate children into these ideologies, and it's wrong. You know, schools should be safeguarded. Schools should not be allowed to have any organisation, especially organisations that are pushing this transgenderism onto children deliberately, so children are brainwashed from the very get-go. So when they get older, they can fight their battles, or you know, and say that, you know, we are this way and we've been affected. If parents were, you know, there for their children and making sure that their children, you know, are corrected from the very beginning, rather than exploring. I don't even know what that means, exploring gender. All children are born female and male.
We've got to leave it there. Kirsty and Izzy, thank you both very much indeed.
I just feel like I just want Kirsty to have, if it's all right, just one quick response, just because there were sort of criticisms of her parenting, and I just think, just give her a chance to have one quick word back.
I think that, like, I do respect your viewpoint on this. Of course I do, because that's your personal viewpoint and it's important. You know, we live in a society of free speech. So I want to say that, but also I want to say that for me and for parents, I guess, that parent in the same way that I do, it's really important to me to have an open dialogue where our children can express themselves. And transgender people have been around forever and queer people have been around forever. It's just that right now we're pushing for a more inclusive society where people can be themselves.
Thanks, Kirsty. Thanks, Izzy.
Thank you both. We have to leave it there.
I've been thinking about the actual physical act involved in this, why a girl would want to be in toilets with boys or boys being toilet. I'm a bit lost into physically.
Right, so if a guy identifies as a girl, he then wants to use the ladies' toilet, but he would still have a penis.
So he wouldn't
would go
use
into
he wouldn't want to use the urinal.
No, he would want to go and use the girls' loos because they identify as a girl. So that's where the problem comes, because...
But he could go into a cubicle anyway.
It's a whole minefield, but, you know...
It is.
Let us know your thoughts this morning.
Lots more minefields in the papers. Don't go away.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle. I know, yeah. Please stop. Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc.
That's the whole point.
And action.
Sergeant, the Big my superstar panel, they're already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often there will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Stories in the papers today. Here to discuss them, Norman Baker and Emily Carver. Emily, I want to start with you. This is the Telegraph reporting this, that doctors are warned not to ask people's names to avoid offending trans people. This carries on from our last discussion before the break there about gender-neutral toilets.
Yeah, and you can see how divisive this issue can be with that debate you were doing. But I prefer the article in The Sun, actually, because they show a picture of this poster that is in this NHS hospital in North London, and it gives advice on how to be a good trans friend, OK, which sounds lovely. But it actually seems to compel speech. So stop asking inappropriate questions is what they say. Questions such as, what is your name? And are you really a man or a woman? Are an absolute no-no. You would not say such questions to cisgender people. OK, I don't like that term.
So you don't want
so why
to
would
know...
you present to trans people?
You don't want to know what my name is, Norman's name is, Isabel's name is, because it may identify us as male or female. Is that right?
Yes. Well, it's more that they might find it offensive in one way or another, although I don't believe people are that sensitive. But anyway, the hospital also has a LGBTQ+ ally scheme banner at the entrance. OK, being an ally to LGBT community. But it says... any employee wearing an ally badge is a safe person to speak to.
That's very divisive,
that if you're
isn't it?
not wearing the badge,
Yes.
you're not a safe person to speak to, or you might get a lesser quality of care.
Do you find that offensive?
I do, actually. I do. I don't think you should have to plonk a badge on your lapel or whatever to be considered a decent person.
I must say the inbox is absolutely overwhelmed with people saying this is ridiculous and...
All right, well, here's my question,
In
Norma.
balance, I was just going to say, transsexual woman's got in touch. I'd always use the ladies unless it suited me to use the mixed cubicle. I'm not trans or gender neutral. I am a woman with a gender recognition certificate.
But for those who are not sure what they are, that's the thing. Do we need an organisation, or who listens to these organisations? Who actually gives? If you and I started up a group, if you said, you're a great train fan, if you're going to say, decide to use the train to work instead of a car, and you went to knock the door of a hospital and said, I would like to present this petition around. Now, I think it would take a long time for anyone to listen to you because they've got more important things to do. So... why do we listen to these?
Well, we don't listen to them, as you understand. So there's someone there who's decided he's been given a job as equalities person or whatever they're called. He's come up with some idea to justify the resistance, I'm afraid. I mean, that's a lot of nonsense. How can you be offended by asking what your name is? I just don't understand that.
See, take my name. People wouldn't know what my name is. They wouldn't know it's boy or girl. Nobody can spell it. No, they don't. They can't spell it. Mine is an Arab name. It's an Irish name. It's a lot of people in Turkey are called Eamonn as well. They don't know.
I suppose you're called Pat. You don't know whether you're male or female anyway.
That's very true. Very, very true.
But the problem is like this is everywhere. So the NHS, for example, the emergency services were giving guidance to people who work on emergency calls. So the people you call when you want an ambulance. And they said to them that, don't ask whether they're a male or female judged on their... Don't say sir or madam based on their voice.
Do you know what? Just find out if they're bleeding or they're going to die or not. That's really all I want to know. Let's talk about ticket offices. This is front page of the Mirror. The axe will hit the elderly and the disabled. And this is about real ticket offices closing.
Yes, well, the Mirror has obviously got a political angle, to be fair, but the fact is 460,000 people have responded to consultation on ticket office closures, and I think I would safely say 99% of them are going to be against the idea of reducing ticket offices. Just politically, I have to say this is nonsensical in a way to pursue this particular point. The government's in a continual battle with the unions, and the government's saying the unions have got to change their working conditions, and I think they've been winning that argument with the public at large, that ancient practices have got to change. Well, here they are now. They've handed this on the plate to the unions because the public will be on the side of the unions who are campaigning against ticket office closures. And there are serious issues about this. I mean, yes, only 12% of people use ticket offices, or 12% of tickets are sold through ticket offices. 12% is a lot of tickets.
It's a lot of tickets. And I could say, without ticket offices, we get the stage where everyone is complaining, as they are today, in airports around the country and around the world. They have nobody to talk to. There's no human interface at all, and that's what will happen at your train station.
Well, it is, and the other thing is that if you look at the mix of people using the trains now, it's changed since COVID because the commuter market is not there as it was. People are now working from home. But the leisure market is growing enormously. Now, people who are therefore using trains for the first time and are uncertain about trains and uncertain about tickets actually want to use ticket offices more to get help from
Can't we
someone.
meet in the middle and make it more efficient and cost-effective by, I don't know, people having several jobs in the train station?
Yes,
so
we can.
not just so if no one's coming to the ticket office that day, because there are train stations where, you know, there's one person who buys a paper ticket
Yes.
every month, which obviously wouldn't be good to have a ticket
No,
man
but they're
there
also
the
used for
entire
inquiries,
time.
Emily, and things that don't work. I mean, I'm an infrequent train user, and I know when I do use the train, suddenly I go, can I use that ticket after this hour? Can it be flexible for other? I need somebody to talk to just to reassure me, and that, I think, is the problem that people are worried about.
And ticket machines don't have the full range of tickets at the moment. And also the First and ticketing regime in this country is hugely complicated. It's a kind of Heath Robinson thing based on what British Rail had. Do you know there are 55 million different train tickets you can buy in this country?
55 million.
There are.
But roughly one for each person in this country. So what the government should be doing really is sorting out the First and ticketing system first before they go down this road.
Oh, gosh. 55 million different routes?
Yeah.
Different ticket types?
No, different
tickets.
ticket types.
Wow.
Yeah.
Not as many routes, that's for sure.
No, it's
Nowhere near.
different tickets.
We've got about a minute. Where do you want to go next, Emily? Do you want
Times?
Sure. OK, let's go to the front of the Times. Labour more trusted than the Tories on tax, immigration and law.
Yes, so this isn't very good news for Rishi Sunak. On 9 out of 10 issues, Labour are now more trusted and in traditionally conservative, strong areas. So immigration, law and order...
Is this a new poll?
Tax as well. This is a new poll, yes, on the Times, and it's in a lot of the papers, actually. Just another reminder to Rishi Sunak that he needs to pull his socks up if he has any chance of winning the next election.
But it's a great shame that that's the response, because Keir Starmer's approach has been to say nothing, actually, about anything.
OK, well, we'll say something. The guys will be back in 40 minutes' time. Travel chaos. We're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about ULEZ in London after this.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GBNews.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. I'm Craig Snell. Well, looking ahead to today, it's a mixture of sunshine and scattered showers for most of us, but it'll be pretty breezy up across the north. So we start the day with this band of showery rain across northern England, parts of Wales. That will sink its way southeastwards as the day goes on. Behind it for Scotland and Northern Ireland, really some blustery showers from the word go. The heaviest of these showers probably up across northern Scotland. I think come the afternoon, best of any drier and brighter weather will be across northern England. And in any sunshine, not feeling too bad for the time of year. In the south, we could see highs reaching around 21 or 22 degrees. Into the evening, this band of rain across the Midlands will sink its way southeastwards, clearing the southeast as we go through the course of the night. That will leave a lot of southern parts of the UK dry and clear, where further north, continuation of some showers. And again, some of these could be potentially heavy up across the far north of Scotland. Under the clear skies, turning a little bit cool for the time of year. Could see lows falling down to about 5 to 6 degrees in some prone spots. But that sets us up for a fairly bright start across many parts of the country, and I'm hopeful a little bit more in the way of sunshine around compared to today. But still the risk of some showers. Some of these showers could be quite heavy. Initially across northern England, they may well sink their way into parts of the Midlands and East Anglia as the day goes on, with perhaps the driest and brightest conditions tomorrow down towards the southwest. Highs very similar to what we'll be seeing today.
The temperature's rising.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com? You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
Is the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Sadiq Khan's ultra-low emission zone comes into force today.
Good morning, it's 8 o'clock on Tuesday, the 29th of August. This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel Webster.
We've got the big talking points off the morning, beginning with the expansion of London's ULEZ has come into force today, affecting most roads within the M25. The bid by the Mayor to improve the city's environment has been met with challenge from some motorists concerned about the extra charges involved.
And it comes as a Labour frontbencher hits out at the Mayor over the scheme, calling on him to delay its introduction.
Travellers are facing a week of serious disruption following the network-wide failure of air traffic control system around the UK. The meltdown has so far caused thousands of cancellations and severe delays.
And regional leaders of the Spanish Football Federation have called for the immediate resignation of their president, Luis Rubiales, after he kissed player Jenny Hermoso on the lips. Paul Coit will be here with more.
Oh, what a mess. The board, the players, FIFA, everybody wants him gone, apart from his mum, who's gone on hunger strike.
Well, that's what mums are for, really, isn't it? Craig Snell, he's here for the forecast.
Good morning. It's the final week of August. Will we see any dry and fine weather before we move into autumn? Find out in a little bit.
Right, Sadiq Khan's controversial ULEZ expansion comes into force today after months of legal battles and backlash from motorists. We've been running a poll on this and asking you what you think of all of this. And there's a number of aspects to this poll. The government should prioritise helping the UK reach net zero carbon emissions, even if it increases the cost of living for ordinary people. 16% of you go for that one.
Yeah, and would you support or oppose a similar ULEZ charge if it arrived in your local area? 25% would support it, 54% would oppose it, 20% don't know.
To what extent do you support or oppose the existence of the zone in London? Is that the one you've just read?
No, that's the one before.
Sounds like the same question. Right, so 32% support this, 42% oppose it, 25% don't know if they're coming or going. So, what does all this mean? The scheme means owners of older, more polluting vehicles who live and work inside the M25 will have to pay a daily charge of £12.50.
Well, speaking to us earlier, the Transport Secretary, Mark Harper, says he does not have the power to stop it from coming into force.
Have the power to stop it coming into force. That's a decision for the Mayor of London, backed by the Labour leader. I think he should think again. He says this is to do with air quality. His own impact assessment says this will only have a minor to negligible effect on air pollution. It's not about air pollution, it's about a money-raising exercise, and this is absolutely not the time to be putting all those costs on hard-pressed and hard-working Londoners and those in the area outside London.
Well, one of the areas included in the new zone is Cudham, a rural village on the outskirts of Kent. And ahead of his ULEZ special programme this evening, Nigel Farage has been speaking to locals to find out how they're being impacted.
Well, there are literally more horses than people living in this part of what is Greater London. And this is a real issue. It isn't just local people that ride. People come out from London, underprivileged kids, etc. Now, Ronnie's been leading protest after protest. What's the big beef with horse riders?
I think really it's all the non-compliant vehicles, as you can see behind us. None of these vehicles are compliant, yet some of them, you know, nothing wrong with them. The scrappage isn't going to cover, you know, new horse boxes, and then it affects our hobbies and everybody else from the equestrian industry, like farriers, vets, that all come in from, you know, like Kent, Surrey. Then our prices will go up. So it's a knock-on effect with everybody.
Let's talk to some horse box owners, shall we?
If everyone got rid of their non-compliant horse boxes, there aren't enough transporters to do that. And there's not enough encouragement for people to do that. It's a hard job to do.
Just chatting to people around the village, so many people are worried about how much they have to spend to change their car. I don't just use my car for work, I use it for personal use as well. Yeah. Community events like this, I'm humping speakers around this recreation ground, you know. Well, how am I going to do that if I haven't got this car? And I'm just going to have to spend the £12.50 a day, because I don't want to spend £20,000 getting rid of a perfectly good car. So how's that going to improve air quality? It's not. It's just going to put £12.50 in the pocket.
It's a tax. Tax and control, that's my theory on it. Join me live at 7 o'clock tonight in Cudham, on the edge of the Greater London area. This is the most remote, rural part of London to be affected by your ULEZ extension. Let me tell you, I've never known anger like it. I'll be interviewing local people to see what the impact is on their lives and whether Mayor Khan gives a damn. Join me live at 7 o'clock from Cudham.
One to miss that at 7 o'clock. And of course, the Mayor, he says he's been agonising over this decision. He says it's a difficult decision, but he argues that this will improve air, be good for the climate and reduce congestion. And he points to the evidence that the initial improvement so far, according to TfL data, is that nitrogen dioxide concentrations have estimated to be 46% lower in central London. The question is this the right way to go about it, and is this the right timing?
Well, the question is, you have all these pollution concerns, but they go away if you pay £12.50.
Well, yes, I think it's supposed to deter people, isn't it? But also the point is the tube's also full of poisonous air. Where do you stop? Well, look, let's debate this, shall we? We're talking now to Karina Fernandez. She's campaigner at Mums for Lungs. Her son has asthma, and she supports today's changes.
And Michelle Chisholm, care support worker and anti-ULEZ campaigner, who thinks today is the worst day in history for working-class people. So why do you think that? We were talking about, you know, it may be inconvenient, it may be expensive, but surely it's doing anyone who lives within the M25 a lot of good.
Is that to me, Eamonn?
Yes, we can, yeah.
OK, so, yeah, today is the worst day in history for people of Great Britain, and to be perfectly frank, not just London, because this is going to become nationwide. The cameras are actually there to finally capture pay per mile. So eventually everyone will be affected. The problem that we have is that we have small businesses, we have the elderly, we have the vulnerable, we have basically every single person in London that drives a non-compliant car will be affected. Companies are going out of business as a result of this. The elderly are becoming prisoners at home, all in the name of what? Air quality. Now, I could understand if we had an air quality problem, but we actually don't. We are checking the air quality every single day using correct data that Imperial College themselves sometimes provide. And I can honestly assure you that there is no air quality problem in the UK, particularly in outer London.
Karina Fernandez, who I'm sure will disagree. Karina, what do you make of that? This is the worst day in history, not only for working class people, but for British people, and there's nothing wrong with our air.
So, Michelle, you're in a really hard position there. Obviously, for you, it's a really difficult day, but in fact, I think overall, and especially for working class people, it's actually a brilliant day because the most deprived people don't have a car at all. And it's in fact them that are the most adversely affected from the air pollution that we undeniably have. The weight of evidence is overwhelming. I myself have spent a lot of time in hospital with my son who has asthma. I'm asthmatic also myself. Both of us really, really feel it on high pollution days. And to sit by my son's hospital bed, not knowing whether or not they're able to bring his asthma under control, which is clearly exacerbated by pollution. When you think about little children's faces, they're about the height of your average exhaust pipe. It's clear to me and clear to all of those doctors that recently wrote an open letter to Keir Starmer and to Rishi Sunak calling for urgent action and a support of ULEZ that demonstrate to me that this is the first of many important steps towards cleaning up the air for everybody, because we all deserve to breathe clean air. And I'm sure that you agree with that, Michelle.
Okay, so, right, first of all, yes, 100%. Everybody has a right to clean air. I don't dispute that. In regards to your son, that is a tragic situation. I am a care support worker. I work with lots of people that have asthma, both basically from babies right the way through to adulthood. Now, my issue here is air quality. You've just told me that 250 doctors wrote letters to...
I didn't give you a number, actually. It was more than that, as it happens.
Okay, I don't recall. I think it was 250 doctors that did write
400.
to... Okay, 400 wrote to Rishi Sunak. Can I tell you now, 225,000 people have completed a petition to say no. Now, the reason they're saying no is because we don't have an air quality problem. It's based on lies, pure and simple lies. Can I just give you some facts? Out of 131 countries in the world, the UK is sitting at number 101. One being the worst, 131 being the best. We sit at 101. That means that there are 101 countries that have higher air quality problems than the UK. Now, that is based on WHO data. Now, I can understand what you're saying about air pollution. I totally get it. But in terms of the quality impact assessments, they all showed negligible difference.
No, Michelle, I'm
negligible.
So sorry.
That is the word used.
To step in there. Michelle, thank you for sharing that. I've heard you share those facts before on this very same programme. And something that I'm not sure has been aired yet is a discussion about the 250,000 children in London that have asthma, and that the cases of asthma are rising yearly. Last year, 2,800 children were admitted to hospital in London. What we need to do, and what the ULEZ is doing, do let me finish, please, Michelle. I can see you're desperate to say something, but so am I. What we need to do, I think, is to change the way that we travel around London. And I can imagine that things are really hard for you as a carer. You're doing an awesome, awesome job looking after people, and thank God for you and people like you. And that's really important. And you should not be in the position of compromising your work in order that our children, and you have children too, breathe clean air. We shouldn't be pitted against each other. We need to work together as a community to lobby central government. I'm nearly finished, please let me finish. To lobby central government for a greater scrappage scheme, and in order to support people like you live your life and not at the cost of children who are really, really suffering with the polluting vehicles.
Right.
We really need to do something, Michelle. And if not this now, then what?
Firstly, I need to interrupt you. This is not about me, right? This is about the hundreds of thousands of people whose lives are being destroyed. Now, we talk about asthma. I can tell you now, there are 10 triggers for asthma. I can actually read them out to you, and I can also read you a statement that was actually written in the, it was called, sorry, I'm just checking my notes, the Lancet Public Health Journal. And Dr. Samantha Walker clearly said, "It is disappointing that the low emission zone has not helped to improve children's lung capacity." Now that is written in the Lancet Public Health Journal by Dr. Samantha Walker. Now let me tell you something. We're talking about air pollution. How many people have died as a result of air pollution? I'll give you the answer. It's one. One person in the UK.
No, Michelle.
One is too
Michelle.
many, but one has died as a result of air pollution. And I can tell you now, it also states that that was not confirmed to be car emissions. Do you have a wood burner?
No. What we know about Ella Kissy Deborah is that every day she had to walk to school along the South Circular, which is, inordinately polluted. We also know that many, many children have a journey to school along polluted roads. And further to that, in terms of what is listed, what is cited on the death certificate as a reason for death, it's a very deeply complex issue in the way that smoking is a deeply complex issue. Very rarely is it cited on somebody's death certificate that they died as a result of smoking. And yet we all know that smoking is a killer. And in fact, air pollution is now almost as big a killer as smoking is. And we need to take action, Michelle.
One person. If it is so bad, if the air quality is so bad, why are these cars not banned? Why is it okay?
They are going to be
I can pay
banned.
£12.50 and pollute all day long. How is that correct?
But Michelle, the point is that if you have to pay £12.50,
is it okay to pollute? Sorry?
No, sorry, Michelle. The £12.50, I think, is. No, it isn't saying that at all. £12.50 is there as a deterrent. Perhaps it will encourage people. Perhaps it will encourage people to share a ride.
Robbing people. Sadiq Khan is robbing people. He is basically dipping their handbags at the end of the day.
I don't think you're going to agree. I think that's
diesel
fair
cars,
to
Michelle, I
say.
need to say, diesel cars are robbing children of their right to breathe clean air.
Well, sadly to say, Karina, in a poll that we've run on this station, 54%, more than half of people say the government should prioritise keeping the cost of living low, even if it means it has to do less to help reach net zero carbon emissions.
Indeed, the government this morning, the Transport Secretary himself saying that he didn't think this was the right decision to expand the ultra-low emission zone. We say thank you very much to both of you. Clearly feel very strongly. Karina Fernandez from Mums for Lungs and Michelle Chisholm, a care support worker and anti-ULEZ campaigner. I think my question is, where is all this money
going to?
Yes. Is it being invested into trees, which we know helps to tackle
Is it paying off the deficit in the pension fund?
Is it going to be invested into converting buses into electricity or whatever? Or is it exactly for a more sort of cynical purpose? And is it just a cash cow? I'd like to get to the bottom of that, to be honest. Let us know your views. Lots of you have strong feelings. I suspect from our poll we know which way it's going to go. It's certainly an interesting debate and a big day for London. GBViews at gbnews.com.
Have we ever been taxed more? Have we ever had to pay? What is free anymore? I remember when they used to be. Well, they shouldn't be free.
There we go.
Yeah, they shouldn't be free. They're for all the foreign travellers around the world to come and have a cheap day out. But, you remember you used to be able to park in a car park free. You know, there was everything. You know, there's a price now on everything, absolutely everything. Anyway, if you are travelling or plan to travel by air over the weekend, you are now facing days of disruption after that system failure yesterday left tens of thousands of you stranded on one of the busiest travel days of the year.
Yeah, and we're being told this morning it's going to get worse before it gets better. We're told it was a technical fault, caused 80% of flights to be delayed, an estimated 1,200 cancelled, affecting 200,000 people. It's the single worst day of air traffic disruption since the Iceland volcano in 2010.
I remember where I was. I was in Portugal when all that happened.
It's a huge news story, as is this. Well, look, let's speak to comedian Danny Postel. He is a face you might actually recognise. He was on Britain's Got Talent. Good morning. But you're not laughing today, stranded in Greece due to all the chaos.
Well, to be honest, there's worse places to be stranded. And I've got to say, TUI, the company I'm working for, have done an incredible job for me. You know? I mean, they put me up. It's all inclusive, you know, so I'm not really complaining.
You're laughing then.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm supposed to be in Mallorca today. I was meant to fly from Crete to Manchester to Mallorca this morning to do a show tonight in Mallorca. And we were on the runway for 6 hours and then told we had to get off the plane to go back into the terminal. Obviously, because the pilots, they can only work a certain amount of hours, which I think is great, you know, which is the sensible thing to do to get off the plane. Yeah. Because, I mean, the last thing you want is, you know, I mean, it's bad enough falling asleep at the wheel. You don't want the pilot falling asleep in the air, do you? You know? I mean, that'd be quite dangerous. So, so I'm literally waiting for the phone call for my next flight.
Well, I hope it comes for you soon, Danny. We've got to leave you and cross to Eric Moody, former British Airways pilot. Eric, as I understand it, the failure yesterday meant switching air traffic control, switching from digital to what was termed analogue, and that meant the plane being landed and taking off manually by pilots. Is that an unusual thing nowadays?
No, that's not what it means at all, Eamonn. What it means is that they have automatically they submit their flight plans, which tells the controllers what they want to do and when they want to do it, and it's automatically then by computers approved. When that isn't available, they have to do it by hand. They have to write out slips and put it on a piece of metal and slip it up and down boards. Yeah. And the controllers have to do that themselves. And it's far less efficient and far more time-consuming and slower. The human brain doesn't work as quickly as a computer does. So there is a time element, and obviously they can't process so many per hour as they do when it's on automatics. So that's what's caused the problem. Therefore, you're able to get fewer aircraft in the air, and fewer aircraft are able to transit the UK. So therefore, you have to cancel some services because there's a backlog. And I'm afraid that when it comes to decision making, they used to say about the old BOAC captains, if you laid a BOAC captain end to end all around the world, he wouldn't reach a decision. I'm afraid the whole of, well, not only aviation, but it seems to me the whole of the country is very poor on decision making, and it's because you can't make enough decisions as quickly as a computer that we've got the delays today. And now you've got aeroplanes and pilots out of position, and that's going to take more decisions to get them in the right position. So it's all going to take time. I'm afraid the poor old public are going to suffer.
Oh, sad to hear. Eric, thanks for your take. Thank you. Really appreciate you painting a very graphic picture of that as to what was involved. Thank you. We've got to say goodbye to you. The Spanish Football Federation regional leaders have called on their president, Luis Rubiales, to immediately resign after the kiss with Jenny Hermoso on the mouth after the World Cup final. Paul Coit here now with that on the latest. You're going to get a bit of a Spanish take on this, aren't you?
Yes, I think it'd be a good idea. And also I thought I'd do something that would be good for both of us. Someone that used to play for Spurs and play for Manchester United, so we wouldn't have any problem. You remember the great Terry Gibson, don't you, Terry?
I do indeed. played up front.
He did, and also, as far as Spain is concerned, Spanish football expert and also an expert with La Liga as well.
No.
If anybody's up on this.
Well, good, Terry. Terry, good then. Good to have you on board today. Do you live in Spain, Terry?
No, I don't know. I live in UK, live in Essex, but I was out there working at the weekend and on Friday and Saturday for La Liga, doing the games on Friday evening and Saturday evening. So I got a sort of first-hand look at the absurdity of it all now, which is fast becoming a farce, to be honest.
Right, you think this is absurd in the sense that it's a bit of a witch hunt, or that he just hasn't backed down quickly enough?
Oh, no, definitely not a witch hunt. It's a witch hunt that's been waiting to happen, but rightly so. And no, it's absurd that he's just refusing to back down, and he's being so defiant in the face of sheer and utter condemnation from everybody in Spain. I mean, all the managers were coming out in their press conferences at the weekend, condemning his action, including Xavi Hernandez of Barcelona. It's just absurd. As you can see now, his mother was on a hunger strike in a church. He had 200 sycophants giving him a standing ovation at an extraordinary general meeting on Friday, including the national manager, Luis de la Fuente, who was caught clapping and cheering him on, and then the next day had to backtrack and claim that he was against Rubiales as well. So it's him on his own, and he's refusing to go, to the extent the Spanish FA now have threatened that the national team will pull out of competitions, and their club teams will pull out of European competitions as well. It's just bluster on the part of the Spanish FA in backing a man that doesn't deserve to be supported and backed, and should be gone by now.
Terry, can't he just be fired? I mean, we've seen what FIFA have said. They want him banned. Everybody does. And like you say, the whole of Spain are against him. Can you not just fire a man and just get rid of him straight away? Because he just seems to be hanging on for some reason.
The whole of Spain aren't against him. The whole of Spain aren't. His mother's not against him.
Apart from his mum.
Yes,
his mum. I think his mum probably is, because she's on a hunger strike. She's probably thinking, how long is this going to go on for? I want him out as well. Yeah. So is that just a possibility that he can just get fired, Terry?
I guess there is a possibility, but what you understand is, and we all know how it works, when you've got that much power that he has, effectively he's the only person that can fire himself, and he's refusing to do that. So the people that are on committees, therefore under him, they've all worked with him. I mean, as I say, this is a witch hunt that's been waiting to happen. There's a lot of people that have been waiting for this opportunity.
Would you fire him, Terry? Do you think he has to go?
100%, yes.
You would?
He should have gone by now, yes.
Yeah.
The behaviour on the day when I was watching it live, I was thinking, why is he doing that? He's the president of the Spanish FA. And I actually saw more footage in Spain that we haven't seen in the UK. And the behaviour in the director's box next to the Queen of Spain was, I can't believe anyone with any right mind would have behaved like he did.
Terry, gotta go. But thank you very much indeed. Really appreciate your perspective. You know where it's at, and we're getting great thrill out of the fact you played for Man U and Spurs.
Keeping us both happy.
Yeah, keeping us both happy. Thank you very much.
Makes my job a lot easier.
Thank you very much.
Right, we're going to take a look at the forecast now. Here's your man, Craig Snell.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GBNews.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. I'm Craig Snell. Well, looking ahead to today, it's a mixture of sunshine and scattered showers for most of us, but it'll be pretty breezy up across the north. So we start the day with this band of showery rain across northern England, parts of Wales. That will sink its way southeastwards as the day goes on. Behind it for Scotland and Northern Ireland, really some blustery showers from the word go. The heaviest of these showers probably up across northern Scotland. I think come the afternoon, best of any drier and brighter weather will be across northern England. And in any sunshine, not feeling too bad for the time of year. In the south, we could see highs reaching around 21 or 22 degrees. Into the evening, this band of rain across the Midlands will sink its way southeastwards, clearing the southeast as we go through the course of the night. That will leave a lot of southern parts of the UK dry and clear, where further north, continuation of some showers. And again, some of these could be potentially heavy up across the far north of Scotland. Under the clear skies, turning a little bit cool for the time of year. Could see lows falling down to about 5 to 6 degrees in some prone spots. But that'll set us up for a fairly bright start across many parts of the country, and I'm hopeful a little bit more in the way of sunshine around compared to today. But still the risk of some showers. Some of these showers could be quite heavy. Initially across northern England, they may well sink their way into parts of the Midlands and East Anglia as the day goes on, with perhaps the driest and brightest conditions tomorrow down towards the southwest. Highs very similar to what we'll be seeing today.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
So by law, you can legally sunbathe topless. I think this applies to both men and women without being discriminatory about this in Spain.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about this right after the break. When is it good to do that?
I'm enjoying this. Carry on.
Well, I wouldn't know where to look.
No, I know. Prudish, some might say.
Well, would you say you can't say to me that you would be...
Maybe I can.
If you bumped into me on the beach, would you be embarrassed to see my breasts?
I bumped into Brendan Cole from Strictly Come Dancing.
He'll love it.
When I was in my bikini last year, and I was embarrassed because I was in my bikini. When you bump into anyone you know, whether it's topless or not, it's embarrassing.
Yes.
However,
yes.
You're with your family, you're at the beach, the sun's shining, you want to go topless. Why shouldn't you be able to? It's ridiculous.
But as my wife says, it's like lying in your underwear. I mean, when she's sunbathing, they literally come over and they stand. Don't look like that on loose women, do you?
Oh, come on, Ruth.
I'm telling you.
Splendid.
No, but I'm telling you, that's how intrusive people are.
Yeah.
So how far should we take them? Would you get them off after this?
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle. Please stop.
Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc.
That's the whole point. But bomb.
And action.
Sergeant, read my superstar panel. They're already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views, and often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Stop it, you wind-up merchant. Right, before you all choke on your cornflakes this morning, we are debating the big issue of the day, topless sunbathing.
OK, I personally don't do it. Right.
You like to wear a bikini?
No, my moves are disgusting. They are disgusting. Honestly,
now you're going to put people off their breakfast.
I could give you whiplash if I did this. Honestly.
Anyway, let's not go down that road. Right, we're talking about this because in Spain, believe it or not, the Catalan government have introduced whopping fines of £430,000 for anybody who tells sunbathers to cover up.
Yeah, to object or to get a police officer or whatever with a ticket or whatever. So, is this a sign of
progress?
Well, it doesn't sound like progress to me.
Well, it's protecting the right.
Oh, sorry. Yes. No, you're right.
Or
you're right.
Is it a bit, silly now? Why are we getting upset about this? Let's have a debate, shall we, with the etiquette expert Liz Brewer, who thinks topless sunbathing should be banned, and Albert, who's a naturist, who says topless sunbathing is a wonderful thing. Can I start with you, Liz? Because you did just confess to me in the advert break that you did sunbathe topless in all your glory back in the day.
I go through my photograph albums. I have to put stickers on various bits. Yeah, but I don't consider it should be banned. There's a place for everything. Those people that want to go nude, there are nudist beaches. I'm not against it on private yachts, in private spaces. It's where families are concerned. And we are living at an age at the moment of sort of consent. And a lot of people who are sexually sort of traumatised. And you have to bear that in mind. It's all very well, but if you give permission in a public place for women to go topless, well, you might as well let the guys get their willies out and go nude.
Dear. Let's ask Elle. Do you think you have sexually traumatised people?
Many. Yeah, definitely.
Stop.
But not in that way. The issue is, right, not everyone has a private yacht, OK? Some people just want to go to the beach, some people want to go to the park, and why not? They're just boobs at the end of the day. And the only reason that they're dangerous is because society said men can't look at them without getting excited. And we're talking about women who go through stages in their lives. So you be a young girl and then you turn into a teenager, you're a young woman. They are the most impressionable and self-conscious people on the planet. 3 of us sat here have been a young woman. And what was it like if someone came to you and said, you can't do that because your body is wrong, your body is dangerous? And I'm not talking about walking down Oxford Street with my tits hanging out. I don't want to do that. But if we're just going to go to the beach, I want to sunbathe, I want to lay in a park, why not? And what we need to put is we need to kind of have more rules about men approaching women. And I think what Spain is doing is the correct way. It's not, we shouldn't be scrutinised.
Yeah, I think it's interesting is that you picked up on children rather than men in all of this. And I have to say, I was on the beach this summer with my children, lots of women out with their boobs on display, and my children didn't bat an eyelid, and I totally
That's because they were naked.
Well, yeah, actually, my children were naked a lot of the time, 7 and 5, and I think that's wonderful because they're not sexual, they're children, it's not a sexual thing, and I don't think being topless needs to be sexual.
No, Isabel, I actually had a conversation last night with my niece. She calls me Auntie Biz.
Lovely.
And I said, Lucinda, because I've stayed with her and my sister and brother-in-law in an island in British Columbia where they go topless, they go bottomless, everything.
The kids have their own rock. They wear their tops and their bottoms. In the end, I was embarrassed because, yes, I was being looked at and glared at, and I'm not going to go topless and feel uncomfortable. I joined the kids on their rock. You know, I think in the age we're living today, and it's so different to when I was in my 20s and 30s, where, yes, I went topless. Everybody went topless. We didn't even think twice.
But what's changed?
We didn't think about it. But what's changed is in the world today, we have this awareness of sexual trauma. And there are a lot of people out there, for whatever reason, and they are traumatised. And you start taking your clothes off, and I do
Well, I don't know about being traumatised.
If you allow everybody in a public place, when I said yacht, I mean you.
But I mean, we're all deluding ourselves if we think that men don't look. Now, I've interviewed naked women in studio before,
You had a good
right?
look,
I knew we'd
didn't
make
you?
it fun.
No, and I tell you, and always my eyes are fixed there. That's how embarrassing I am. So I should be much more chilled and relaxed, should I? If they're naturists and they've come into the studio and they're happy to talk about.
But that's the thing, it's a confidence thing as well.
Yeah.
So when you get a woman that's happy naked, she is naturally very confident. And that is what people find dangerous. So you don't want a woman that is that confident and that outspoken. You know, she might have a mind of her own. So therefore, it's kind of like an oppression thing. That's why, you know, we live in a world where in Iran, women are literally being killed for taking a headscarf off.
Yeah.
And we're debating if women should be able to be topless in a park or on a beach. And I think they should, because it's liberating. Like, I've done gigs naked to naked people.
Oh, look, this is you.
And that is honestly
with
the
your
most confidence I've ever had in my life.
I see you've got
Because,
a picture
you know,
of me.
you start to love yourself, you realise that it's not about, you know, kind of your flaws and this, that and the other. It's just people and it's just skin and it's every body is beautiful.
There is something glorious, isn't there, Liz, about bearing it all?
If you feel comfortable with it, fair enough. But what I'm saying is I think there should be areas where people can do what they like. And there still are. There are the nudist beaches, the various rocks. But, you know, if you are there with your family, and you may have only come across families who didn't bat an eyelid. I've come across a lot of people who are embarrassed by it with their children. They don't feel comfortable. And you see, there isn't much difference. You're going to start bearing breast. You've got to consider their genitals, genitals, breasts. So if a woman is allowed to take her top off, why shouldn't a man take his bottoms off?
Yeah, but then we're talking about the same area, aren't we?
And when
if a
I've
man
been
can go
in that
topless,
situation,
I should be able to go topless.
Yeah, but Elle, when I've been in that situation, I have been embarrassed. And yes, the men, you know, it's extraordinary how many women who do bear all are the sort of slightly larger version, the wrinkly one. And I come along the scene, and I'm going back to sort of 10, 15 years, and I was embarrassed by the looks.
OK. I just want to say to those of you who are getting in touch this morning, complimenting Liz Brewer on her tattoos. I just want to point out that's a blouse, right? They're not. People think that you're inked all over your arm and chest. They're just. I mean,
Ukrainian colours.
Well, very well, lovely, very, very good. Well,
thank you, guys.
Is there anything more you want to reveal?
Well, yes, I was only going to say very quickly. I actually took more offence on this holiday when my little 5-year-old girl wanted a bikini top. Because I felt like
that's more sexualisation.
Sexualisation, and I just don't want us to go down the road of the American way of thinking, which is little children must be covered up because, you know, it's sexual. Children aren't sexual.
So you don't mind me showing these pictures of you now, do you?
I don't think there is any photographic evidence. But, you know, if they look good, go for it.
I just want to say I didn't give any pictures of me because I don't want to be objectified.
Well, actually, people have been saying they want you on a calendar with your top off.
Cliff Richard's 88 or something. He has a calendar.
Yeah,
I'd be a customer.
I think that's
You'll be
brilliant.
One customer.
Right, I hope that didn't put you off your breakfast at home. Thanks for your good humour.
Very good talking to you. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you.
But seriously, Elle, just one point. If you could then, and we did this interview, we were discussing this, and you were allowed to be topless or naked or whatever, that wouldn't perturb you, wouldn't annoy you?
Want to do it now?
Right. No.
Don't dare me.
How about you, Eamonn?
Don't dare.
Tempt her.
We see, I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to. And
would it make you feel uncomfortable?
yes, yes.
Precisely.
Yeah.
That's my point.
But you don't want someone telling you what you can and can't
That's
do.
my point entirely.
Stay with us. We're going to discuss a breakthrough in the case of a stolen golden loo as we go through the papers with Norman Baker and Emily Carver. Did it belong to Donald Trump, I wonder? We'll find out after this.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com? You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, no, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
OK, welcome back. We're going through the papers this morning with Norman Baker and Emily Carver. And Norman, we're going to start with our top story this morning in the Eye, the controversial expansion of the ultra-low emission zone. I don't know if you saw our rather heated debate this hour.
I did.
What are the Eye saying about it all?
Well, I mean, I think this is a different aspect of it, which is although it's worth bringing up, which is the neighbouring councils are refusing to put up signs as ULEZ expands. And this has been criticised by the RAC, which is, after all, a pro-motorist organisation, who says, no doubt they're against the ULEZ, I imagine they are anyway, but saying that they should give in, quote, so the drivers can be given proper warning that they're approaching the zone. That seems to me to be entirely sensible, and while I understand that some councils feel very strongly about the case, I do think you should inform motorists as to what's going on. The other aspect in the eye report, which is also worth noting, is that the government's required by European law to reduce levels of harmful particulate matter, which have been linked to serious health problems. I noticed that Mark Harper earlier on was saying there wasn't really a health benefit from this. There's a dispute between him and the Mayor, clearly, because there are, according to the Eye, 4,267 estimated number of Londoners dying prematurely each year due to long-term exposure of air pollution. So there is an issue about air pollution. Whether or not the ULEZ scheme solves it is a matter of debate.
Emily, anything to contribute?
Well, you know what I find interesting is, and I don't think it's a conspiracy, but it does look like Sadiq Khan is planning some kind of pay-per-mile scheme.
He's denied it this morning outright.
He's denied it outright, which is interesting because there are so many of these cameras going up, and this is something that has been mooted before, and I think that is the next step. Regardless of what Sadiq Khan says, yes, if he's denied it, then I can't say, you know, that he's going to go ahead with it. But it does seem a little bit too much of a coincidence that you'd have that number of cameras and not introduce some kind of charging going forward, because how else is he going to afford it? When everyone's moved into newer vehicles and no one's paying the ULEZ charge, then what? How do you make up financial
I think he has been planning it, to be honest with you. My understanding is that has been planned. And clearly, if it's an extra tax for motorists, that will not be popular. But the County of Better Transport carried out a great deal of research on pay-as-you-drive. And the response from the public was the majority of people actually support pay-as-you-drive if it means neutrality in terms of cost for the motorist. In other words, you take away fuel duty or road tax or something else and put pay-as-you-drive instead. And then that actually commands the majority of public support.
Yeah, but it would always be on top of everything else.
Well, it would be in London, yes, because he can't control fuel duty or tax. But if it were done nationally by the Chancellor of the Exchequer, it could work.
I just get so annoyed because so many media commentators and journalists don't really drive. They live in London, they may commute via the tube and they enjoy public transport, and they forget that for the vast, vast, vast majority of people, they do most of their journeys by car, and they need to, and it's just...
If they don't live in London, though, then they won't be affected by this.
But other schemes...
Story. Yeah, and I want to know what is going on with all the money. Where is all of the money going from this? Is it a cash cow? Is it a sort of cynical way?
TfL, isn't it?
Well, it will raise money.
Or is it going to be invested in green initiatives?
Well, I think it's going into TfL's general budget, and TfL is short of money because...
Yes, is it their pension schemes? Or...
Yes, all that sort of thing. And they have got plans, for example, to replace the rolling stock on the Piccadilly line and so on. So there is investment in public transport. So I imagine someone will cover about that.
Something needs to pay for, you know, all of Sadiq Khan's great initiatives, like the Commission for Diversity in the Public Realm, which did an audit of all the statues in London following Black Lives Matter to decide if they are diverse enough and in keeping with modern London. I mean, £500,000, I believe it was. What a waste.
Probably is, but the ULEZ scheme will raise a great deal more than that.
You can always add statues, but you don't need to take any away.
Yeah, and also you would know the result of that survey before it began.
Yeah.
So, you know, now, school uniform. The Express are doing an item on this, and they're saying the average child, Emily, will go through 945 items of school uniform over probably 14 years at school, and that costs about 1,800 quid.
Yeah.
Now, my point about this is that's like saying you buy a car and you don't want to put petrol in it or whatever. I understand it is a burden, but I don't understand why it's always an issue. It's always an issue for some not to have a school uniform or regulatory...
So you're saying if you have a kid, you know you're going to have to buy them uniform.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Who else is going to pay for it?
I also speak from my own experience. I mean, working class council family, 5 boys in the house. I know it was an issue to find them, but my parents always got the school uniform, whether it be hand-me-downs or whatever.
I think the issue is when schools are too prescriptive about it and strict about, you know, having the special logo from the special shop, and there's always a massive premium. I think £1,800 is probably an underestimate.
So I think I don't think that's much.
Private-state school divide on this.
That counts
as far as I'm
42.
aware, most state schools, in my experience, are actually pretty conscious of the cost of it. And for example, my little girl's starting a new infant school next week, and we've just bought the jumper, the PE T-shirt, the whole thing's come to about £35, and she's can reuse her dress from her old school, which was just an off the peg from Sainsbury's. Wonderful.
Do you have to do a logo or anything?
It's got a logoed sweatshirt, but if you go to private school, the blazers, the PE kit,
it'll be 1,800 quid a term
for the blazer or something.
And then you get sent to school in your sister or brother's old gear that's too big for you. But yes, 42 pairs of school shoes for one child going through the entirety of school. How many? I think I went through more than that. 42 over the course of your entire schooling.
That sounds a lot.
I don't think I did. I think there were about 3 probably.
Yeah, I think people
but my feet were always growing.
Yeah, but that sounds a lot.
I had a humiliating experience when a woman at the John Lewis shoe counter for kids made me get size 8 shoes, even though my feet weren't size 8. She must have had some complex that she wanted people to wear
what
bigger
size
shoes.
were your feet?
Well, they were probably a size 5 at that point.
Gosh.
They only ever grew to a 6.
Well, she either had
I was
to sell them.
humiliated. They were like clown shoes.
The idea was that you would grow into them. Was that the idea?
Yeah, I think so. I think she was just a bit mean.
Did you get picked on about it?
Yeah, well, they were very ugly shoes. See, look, I'm blushing now, remembering it.
Oh, bless you.
What size are they now?
Now they're 6. They only grew to 6.
Very humble size.
12.
7 is the average.
They're massive.
Stop it. Don't. It's a sore point.
I mean, look, I'm touching the end of her shoe here.
Can we talk about the... Well, I don't know how long have we got. Let's talk... We won't go to the Golden Loo just yet. Conservatives are in a mess, according to, well, all the polls, according to The Eye. The Eye is your favourite this morning, Norman.
Well, second story from The Eye, but this is the editorial, and that's actually not just about the Conservatives, it's about Britain. Does nothing in Britain work anymore? It says the collapse of the national air traffic control system is the latest. Hospitals are waiting lists more than a year. Trains are pricey and unreliable, it says here. Rivers are polluted. Taxes higher than ever. Public services don't seem to be improving. You could add to that, no doubt, doctors trying to get a doctor's appointment, the NHS not working properly, the Royal Mail not delivering properly. The question I want to ask your viewers is Britain in any way better off than it was 10 years ago? Because I'm struggling to find an answer.
The other question, Norman, is who's going to do it any better?
Well, that's a legitimate question, because I'm not convinced anyone's going to do any better. But, I mean, that's the reality. It seems to me Britain is falling to bits a bit.
Yeah.
Well,
sadly.
that's miserable, isn't it?
All right. And we need in the minute we've got left, we need to go to the loo. So this is a golden loo, and there's good news. There's not too many of them about. There's been a major breakthrough, according to The Sun.
Yes, this is a £5 million solid gold loo, Blenheim Palace, which was nicked. And we think it's been melted down.
In Blenheim Palace?
From Blenheim Palace. And there's a picture of it there on the screen. And I have to say that no doubt the thieves are flush with cash as a consequence of that. But, you know, why do you want to... The £5 million loo was there to demonstrate, apparently, the excesses of the Americans. That's why it was created as an art.
Very Trump Tower,
is very Trumpian.
It is. But I have to say, would you want to use a gold loo? I'm not sure I would, really.
I wouldn't object.
Whether it's
better than some of the... I wouldn't mind. I have to encounter sometimes.
Is it gender neutral, though? That's the question.
Right, we have to say goodbye. We're out of time. Emily,
thank you for everything today.
As always, thank you very much.
Let's go and get the weather picture. Craig Schnell.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. I'm Craig Snell. Well, looking ahead to today, it's a mixture of sunshine and scattered showers for most of us, but it'll be pretty breezy up across the north. So we start the day with this band of showery rain across northern England, parts of Wales. That will sink its way southeastwards as the day goes on. Behind it for Scotland and Northern Ireland, really some blustery showers from the word go. The heaviest of these showers probably up across northern Scotland. I think come the afternoon, best of any drier and brighter weather will be across northern England. And in any sunshine, not feeling too bad for the time of year. In the south, we could see highs reaching around 21 or 22 degrees. Into the evening, this band of rain across the Midlands will sink its way southeastwards, clearing the southeast as we go through the course of the night. That will leave a lot of southern parts of the UK dry and clear, where further north, continuation of some showers. And again, some of these could be potentially heavy up across the far north of Scotland. Under the clear skies, turning a little bit cool for the time of year, could see lows falling down to about 5 to 6 degrees in some prone spots. But that will set us up for a fairly bright start across many parts of the country, and I'm hopeful a little bit more in the way of sunshine around compared to today. There's still the risk of some showers. Some of these showers could be quite heavy. Initially across northern England, they may well sink their way into parts of the Midlands and East Anglia as the day goes on, with perhaps the driest and brightest conditions tomorrow down towards the southwest. Highs very similar to what we'll be seeing today.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Stay with us. It's a big ULEZ day. We will be talking about the expansion of the ultra-low emission zone in just a few moments' time. Highly controversial, and we've also been polling you, finding out what you think. We'll be picking over that, as well as going on a little exploration of parts of the
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle.
I know, yeah.
Please stop.
Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc.
That's the whole point. But
And action.
Sergeant, read my superstar panel that already at it. That fighting is going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not
believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
The ultra-low emission zone expansion comes into force from today.
From now, it's 9 o'clock, Tuesday the 29th of August. If it's been affecting you or you've woken up to a shock bill with ULEZ, let us know today. You're tuned into Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
Here's what's leading the news this morning. The expansion of London's ULEZ has come into force, affecting most roads within the M25. The bid by Mayor Sadiq Khan to improve the city's environment has been met with challenge from some motorists concerned about the extra charges.
Now, it comes as a Labour frontbencher heads out at Sadiq Khan over the scheme calling him to delay its introduction.
In other news this morning, travellers are facing a week of significant disruption following a network-wide failure of the UK's air traffic control system. The meltdown has so far caused thousands of cancellations and 200,000 people experiencing severe delays.
And regional leaders of the Spanish Football Federation have called for the immediate resignation of their president after he kissed player Jenny Hermoso on the lips.
Plus, we've got your latest forecast with Craig Snell.
Good morning. It's the final week of August. Will we see any dry and fine weather before we move into autumn? Find out in a little bit.
So good morning to you. It is our top story. Sadiq Khan's controversial ultra-low emission zone expansion comes into force today after months of legal battles and backlash from some motorists.
Well, the plan means if you own an older, therefore more polluting vehicle and you live and work inside the M25, you will have to pay a daily charge of £12.50.
Well, speaking to us earlier, the Transport Secretary, Mark Harper, said he does not have the power to stop it coming into force.
Have the power to stop it coming into force. That's a decision for the Mayor of London, backed by the Labour leader. I think he should think again. He says this is to do with air quality. His own impact assessment says this will only have a minor to negligible effect on air pollution. It's not about air pollution, it's about a money-raising exercise, and this is absolutely not the time to be putting all those costs on hard-pressed and hard-working Londoners and those in the area outside London.
OK, one of the areas included is Cudham. Cudham's a rural village. It's on the outskirts of Kent. And ahead of a special programme tonight on ULEZ, Nigel Farage has been speaking to local people to find out how it's affecting them.
Well, there are literally more horses than people living in this part of what is Greater London. And this is a real issue. It isn't just local people that ride. People come out from London, underprivileged kids, etc. Now, Ronnie's been leading protest after protest. What's the big beef with horse riders?
I think really it's all the non-compliant vehicles, as you can see behind us. None of these vehicles are compliant, yet some of them, you know, nothing wrong with them. The scrappage isn't going to cover, you know, new horse boxes, and then it affects our hobbies and everybody else from the equestrian industry, like farriers, vets, that all come in from, you know, like Kent, Surrey. Then our prices will go up. So it's a knock-on effect with everybody.
Let's talk to some horse box owners, shall we?
If everyone got rid of their non-compliant horse boxes, there aren't enough transporters to do that. And there's not enough encouragement for people to do that. It's a hard job to do.
Just chatting to people around the village, so many people are worried about how much they have to spend to change their car. I don't just use my car for work, I use it for personal use as well. Yeah. Community events like this, I'm humping speakers around this recreation ground, you know. Well, how am I going to do that if I haven't got this car? And I'm just going to have to spend the £12.50 a day, because I don't want to spend £20,000 getting rid of a perfectly good car. So how's that going to improve air quality? It's not. It's just going to put £12.50 in the pocket.
It's a tax. Tax and control, that's my theory on it. Join me live at 7 o'clock tonight in Cudham, on the edge of the Greater London area. This is the most remote, rural part of London to be affected by your ULEZ extension. Let me tell you, I've never known anger like it. I'll be interviewing local people to see what the impact is on their lives and whether Mayor Khan gives a damn. Join me live at 7 o'clock from Cudham.
Thank you, Nigel. Let's go to our London reporter, Lisa Hartle. She's in Arnos Grove in North London.
Good morning. Yes, and I'm joined by Kevin, who Kevin owns his own building company. And if you can see behind us, we've got 3 of Kevin's vans. All 3 of them are not compliant. So from today, this morning, how much have you had to pay so far?
So it's £12.50 a day per van. Do the numbers, and before the guys have got any tools off the van, you're looking at best part of 40 quid.
So how are you feeling about, what have you found out about the scrappage scheme?
So the scrappage scheme entitles me to about £7,000 per vehicle. That's my understanding. Ford, to replace a Transit diesel, they've closed their order books, so I can't obtain any diesel new Transits who have always bought from new. So my other options are to go battery, and they're upwards of about 37k per van. So I'm in for about £100,000 to replace these vans. On top of that, I've got to get them sign written, roof racks, racked out inside, and all the stainless steel security plates across all the door locks and that sort of stuff to prevent the daily ongoing problems of theft that we have with our vans. So that's another probably about 3.5k just to get them to what we need to do our work.
So what do you think you're going to do? Are you going to change the vehicles or pay the £12.50 a day?
Well, at the moment, we'll just have to pay the £12.50 a day. I need to do some more research, find out what other options I've got. Obviously, I was hoping that common sense would have prevailed at the last minute, and Mayor Khan and Mark Harper, the Transport Minister, could have got this sort of thing sorted out and perhaps given us a longer grace period to work all this out for us. You know, we've got cost of living crisis. People are very scared at the moment with all the other costs that they're facing, and I think a bit more compassion, common sense would have been appropriate at this time.
I've heard that a lot from speaking to other local business owners. So thank you so much for speaking to us. And yeah, as Kevin was saying there, people are saying, yep, we understand air pollution needs to be tackled, but we need more time, with people only having been given 9 months' notice before this came into play today.
Okay.
You know, I thought Kevin used a great word there, a bit more compassion, when he was talking there. And that's why I think this day and age you get corporate companies and they say, just hashtag be kind, be kind. They don't mean it. They don't mean a word of it. When it comes to business, be kind is out the window. Do you think Sadiq Khan's looking at his figures, what's filling up his pension deficit, and thinking hashtag be kind? No, he's saying to people like Kevin, give me £12.50 a van. That's what they're thinking.
So cynical. So cynical.
No, I don't believe in this. I mean, I think if you prepare...
To be fair, I think whatever you like him or loathe him, I do think he genuinely believes this is the right thing to do.
Well, I think for health...
And I think he thinks this is good for health.
But there's a time and a place, the timing, and people could not be under more financial pressure than they are now. And this is coming in whether you like it or not, and will it lead to something else like charging per mile and...
Well, look, you only have to look at what happened in Boris Johnson's old constituency to see this is a really hot potato when it comes to politics. So we've done some exclusive polling for GB News. The man behind that is politics professor Matt Goodwin. Good to see you, regular on the programme. Welcome, Matt. Tell us a little bit about what you found. Interesting, the first question that sort of jumped out to me is about to what extent do you support or oppose the existence of the ultra-low emission zone in London, and what did people tell you?
Yeah, well, it's really interesting, actually. It's a different story from what we might be picking up listening to politicians in London. Overall, nationally, more voters oppose the ULEZ zones than support. Only about 1/3, 32%, support the ULEZ zone. 42% are opposed to it. And obviously, within that, you find higher opposition among working class voters and those who are most likely to be hit by these charges.
Matt, do you get any indication? We know what people are against. It's quite clear from your poll there. Do you get, or can you read into it in any way what people are for, what they would accept? How far down the road of clean air would they go?
Yeah, so I think one of the other interesting things, Eamonn, it's worth pointing out, is that we've actually also asked voters, would you support a ULEZ zone in your immediate area? And there you find opposition increases even further. 54% of all voters say they don't really want the ULEZ zone in their immediate area. Only 24% would support that. And what this really reflects is really this principle that's underlying all of this, which is, you know, in theory, voters are okay with helping to improve the environment, to wanting to live in a clean climate. But on the other hand, when you actually set out the financial costs that they're going to incur for this, they consistently become much less supportive of it. There is a sense with ULEZ, Eamonn, that actually this is a project that's being imposed on voters from above, by a political class that isn't entirely in touch with the rest of the country.
It's interesting. I was talking about Boris Johnson's constituency a moment ago and how that was almost like a referendum, wasn't it, on ULEZ, and how it's really led to huge backtracking, particularly from Labour on ULEZ, because obviously Sadiq Khan being a Labour mayor. Around this time every day, virtually, we have a Labour ministerial round, somebody from the shadow cabinet. And interesting today, they didn't want to come on. And I wonder, you know, the coincidence, is it coinciding with the expansion of this? But, you know, as a professor in politics...
You call me a cynic.
Are you noticing that this has become an issue that politicians are all sort of backing away from at the moment? We had Mark Harper, the Transport Secretary, this morning saying it's not the right time to expand the ULEZ.
I think that's right. I think there's a nervousness in Westminster about where this issue is going to go. Obviously, we've seen the protests, we've seen some of the vandalism going on, we've seen the sort of the strength of public feeling on this issue. I think particularly for the Labour Party, of course, you know, this is really another issue where they're worried about being on the wrong side of the public mood. Obviously, we've gone through and are still going through the big immigration debate where Labour is not in touch with the rest of the country. We've gone through Brexit, the whole Brexit debate where Labour was, again, not in touch with the rest of the country. And ULEZ, I think, for Labour politicians really symbolises maybe the emergence of a new fault line in British politics where voters are beginning to get very interested in these issues around net zero and beginning to think through the financial costs for them and their families. And obviously, we've got an election next year, too, rapidly approaching. So Labour's trying to downplay the issues that are going to cut across Labour support. So that's why you're not hearing from Labour politicians today, because they've looked at polling like our polling and they've realised just how unpopular some of this stuff really is.
Matt, really appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed for your poll. It's set us up for the day. Thank you very much indeed. And it continues into Britain's newsroom at 9:30. Andrew is with me here in the studio. But Bev, where are you and why?
Morning all, morning. I'm in Bromley in Kent, southeast of London this morning, because of course this becomes now, as of today, one of the 32 London boroughs that is subjected to the ULEZ charges. Today, the UK and London becomes the largest car tariff zone in the world, which Sadiq Khan will no doubt think is cause for celebration. Apologies for the noise. We've got some reversing vehicles. So we're just going to walk a little bit while I talk to you and tell you what's coming up this morning. We're going to be talking to Howard Cox. Of course, he ran Fair Fuel UK for many years and wants to be your London mayor, to see his reaction today. But also here in Bromley, I'm going to be talking to local shopkeepers, to local business owners, to one guy that has a tree surgeon whose vehicle is no longer ULEZ compliant, and to find out what it means genuinely for people on the street here today. It's very, very divisive.
Beverly,
hey, Bev,
thank you. Thank you very much. A lot of traffic there where Bev is as well. You know, a lot of people parking up. Andrew, what else?
I'm going to be so lonely in the studio.
Well, I tell you, you've got a big story to be dealing with as well, this air traffic mess.
I saw in some of the papers quoted down all the front pages some EasyJet pilots saying the worst disruption in 20-25 years. It's a massive failure, again, to invest in decent air traffic control systems. That's the airlines and the governments. What is it? Every bank holiday, it seems now.
Why the bank holiday? Is staff going down? Is it demand on the system? Has it been a hack?
Well, they're denying it's a hack, but they just don't seem to have a proper backup system. If the main one goes down, why isn't there a backup? And it's going to be another week.
It's like everything's done on the cheap. It's like all these people who are watching us around the world and who are stranded, and it doesn't matter if that's stranded in Belfast or Glasgow or wherever they're stranded. They just do not have staff to speak to, people to speak to from the airlines.
They don't know what's going on, how long it's going to last. Some predictions this could go on until Friday.
Yeah.
How absolutely terrible. And you might not get compensation.
Yeah, we spoke to a man in Copenhagen this morning. He said that he was being told that he couldn't get a flight till next week.
Terrible.
Yeah.
But a child and kids come back to school, all that sort of thing as well. From 9:30. Thank you very much indeed. Please do stay with us. We'll ask a consumer lawyer what your rights would be if your flight is being delayed or cancelled. That's next.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6 is Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it. Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com? You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, no, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Right, lots of you tune in to GB News, whether it's in the airport lounges, on the big TVs there, or you're watching us on your phones or on your apps. And so many of you are affected by this air traffic.
Could you imagine being behind a desk today, working, representing one of those airlines and trying to deal with irate passengers?
Yeah.
Because no one is telling you what to do.
Yeah, we've all seen those programmes, Airport, haven't we, and all the like, where people get frustrated and angry and they're having to deal
They have to let it out on somebody.
Yeah. Well, actually, one of our GB viewers, Paul Ray, he was watching us this morning and he sent us an email to say he's stranded in Copenhagen with his 11-year-old son. And this is what's happening for Paul.
I was on the way back from Turkey on a holiday. We thought we'd just pop over to Copenhagen for a few hours with my 11-year-old son to, venture while I was on holiday. Then we got caught on this delay or cancellation, shall I say? And yeah, we're gonna tough it out. The hotels have put their prices up in a demand way, where it's £277, £280 a night, which is kind of not feasible for people who've sort of just come back on holiday.
Gosh.
We was looking at our rights. There was no actual reps in the airport. We had to go to Mendes Aviation, who were looking after everyone. They were handing out a bits of paper saying what your rights were, and basically find your own accommodation, find your own food, etc., and you can claim it back.
He's actually been in touch since he spoke to us earlier in the programme. He said, I've booked a flight for Friday now, so he and his 11-year-old are going to be stuck there till then. I won't get my money back for at least around, he thinks, 6 days, waiting to hear back from insurance. What a nightmare. And you extrapolate that from every flight that's been affected. It was Simon called us saying 1,200 cancelled flights and around 200,000 people stranded.
I presume he's not going to sit in that airport lounge.
No, well, he says he's found a hotel till Friday.
Expense.
And he was on his way back from Turkey, wasn't he?
Well, you know, first of all, I wanted to say to him, why did you go via? Whereas
It was
Oslo?
probably cheaper. It's probably cheaper.
Has turned out to be a false economy, hasn't it? Consumer lawyer Dean Dunham joins us now. Dean, what a mess! What a mess! What are your initial thoughts to people who are in a situation they are confused, but most of all, Dean, nobody is talking to them?
Good morning to you both. Isn't it always the same? No one ever speaks to passengers when they are stranded, when flights are delayed and cancelled. I really don't know why we haven't learnt the lesson yet, or shall I say why the airlines haven't learnt the lesson yet, that you must go out and communicate to your passengers and tell them what's going on and what their rights are. Eamonn, it's got to change sometime soon, because Paul's story you've just heard there, that's the story of many, many people yesterday and today.
Yeah, and so, you know, what happens here? We spoke to the government and we said to them, what are you doing about this? You know, what are you having a word with the airlines and saying they need to do a better job? Or is this down to, you know, how do we improve things? Because everybody's blaming other people.
Yeah, I mean, let's start with this. It's not the airlines' fault that this happened. It's nothing to do with the airlines. But, of course, it is their fault if their communications to their passengers are not good. And it's not difficult to communicate with your passengers to tell them what's going on. Many of them are going to be in the airport already. Those that are not in the airport, they know their details. And the regulator, the Civil Aviation Authority, time and time again come out and say, we are going to bash the airlines and tell them to do this better. But for some reason, it just never happens. And we've got to now see a better communication line, passengers much better informed, because I say this all the time, consumer laws are all about transparency and consumers knowing what their rights are. Here, we are failing consumers miserably.
Yeah. I think the big shock from people is we're going to lose money over this, we're going to lose a day off work, kids aren't going to get back to school, whatever. But not only are they going to lose money, or they may not, you'll tell us what the situation is, but they'll incur charges. It's going to cost them money as well, like our viewer there in Norway. And he's going to have to stay until Friday before he can get transport home.
Yeah. I mean, there's good and bad news here. The good news is the law, we call it EC 261, or in this country, UK 261 since Brexit. The law very clearly says if you are stranded abroad because your flight's been cancelled, the airline has to look after you. So it has to pay for your accommodation until you can get travel home. It has to organise your travel home, even if it's with a different airline. Airlines don't like doing that, but they have to do it by law, or even if it's a different mode of transport. And they have to give you reasonable money for food and for drinks and for telephone calls. Now, often you've heard Paul, your case study there, saying that they've been handing bits of paper, giving them their rights. He may also have been handed vouchers. Often this doesn't happen now.
We've got
and you have to be reimbursed for the expenses.
OK, look, sorry to interrupt. Really good advice. They are protected in law. Dean Dunham, he would know. He's a lawyer and all of these things. Thank you very much indeed. That's it from us. We're back at 6 tomorrow.
Up next, Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Bev.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. I'm Craig Snell. Well, looking ahead to today, it's a mixture of sunshine and scattered showers for most of us, but it'll be pretty breezy up across the north. So we start the day with this band of showery rain across northern England, parts of Wales. That will sink its way southeastwards as the day goes on. Behind it for Scotland and Northern Ireland, really some blustery showers from the word go. The heaviest of these showers probably up across northern Scotland. I think come the afternoon, best of any drier and brighter weather will be across northern England. And in any sunshine, not feeling too bad for the time of year. In the south, we could see highs reaching around 21 or 22 degrees. Into the evening, this band of rain across the Midlands will sink its way southeastwards, clearing the southeast as we go through the course of the night. That will leave a lot of southern parts of the UK dry and clear, where further north, continuation of some showers. And again, some of these could be potentially heavy up across the far north of Scotland. Under the clear skies, turning a little bit cool for the time of year, could see lows falling down to about 5 to 6 degrees in some prone spots. But that will set us up for a fairly bright start across many parts of the country, and I'm hopeful a little bit more in the way of sunshine around compared to today. But still the risk of some showers. Some of these showers could be quite heavy. Initially across northern England, they may well sink their way into parts of the Midlands and East Anglia as the day goes on, with perhaps the driest and brightest conditions tomorrow down towards the southwest. Highs very similar to what we'll be seeing today.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Very good morning. This is Britain's newsroom this morning, coming from London, but also from Bromley here in Kent, because this today becomes one of the ULEZ zones in Sadiq Khan's great plan to increase the area across all 32 London boroughs. I'm going to be here this morning talking to local business owners, to residents, to see how they feel about it. It's very divisive. Stay with us, find out what kind of cars are compliant and which aren't, to make sure that you avoid the £90 fine that you could incur if you don't pay the fee. Go nowhere.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refresh